Good evening and welcome to the Burbank Police Commission meeting for Wednesday, October 18th, 2023. We will go ahead and start with our call. That's our call to order, and we will start with our roll call.
Chair Coombs?
Here.
Commissioner Chapman?
Here.
Commissioner Ellman?
Here.
Commissioner Feruzin? Okay, Commissioner Hakobian?
Present.
Commissioner McKenna?
Here.
And Commissioner Wenzel?
Present.
And with that, we will go ahead and go into our flag salute. Secretary Ellman, if you wouldn't mind leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So with that, we're going to move, actually, real quickly, announcement before we move into item C. Thank you for that. The public comment period will be upcoming in a few moments. To speak during the public comment, members of the public may speak for 3 minutes in person in the council chamber, or they may call 818-238-3335. Members of the public who attend the meeting in the chamber will speak first, followed by those phoning in their comments. So please, if you have cards to submit, please do that. Thank you for those that have done that, and please call in. We will move on to item C, which is commission announcements and reporting out by commissioners and ad hoc subcommittees. And I know there's been a lot of activity going on. Should we just work our way around the horn?
Sure.
Romick, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Coombs. I'll try to make this as brief as possible because there are about seven items I can report on. On Thursday, August 24th, I attended Monterey High School discussion with Jamie Keyser-Thomas, the CEO of the Chamber. Roberta Reynolds, former BUSC board member, invited us to have a conversation. They're trying to connect the students and some community leaders about their goals and some initiatives they have. And on Wednesday, September 6th, I was involved in parent engagement night at Disney Elementary. Officer Kaomi Roberts accompanied me for a presentation to the elementary school regarding internet safety and parental controls. Really great discussion by all. On Tuesday, September 12th, I attended the 2023 Boards and Commissions recognition event, and it was great seeing my fellow commissioners and also meeting some of the new board members and commissioners all throughout the city. On Wednesday, September 13th, I attended the School Safety Committee meeting with Dr. Parama with my fellow commissioners Ann and Paul. And on Thursday, September 14th, I attended the new recruit graduation with Captain Cremens and Captain Cornelius. Thank you for letting me come to you. And on Friday, September 29th, I had a ride-along with Sergeant Marakian from the gang unit. We had a great ride-along. He effectively apprehended a suspect on a disturbance call and responded with theft situation at the Empire Center, and also got to join in on a roll call and crowd control training with 2 other officers. Really enlightening. Thank you for that. And then finally, I attended the pink car unveiling at BPD. Really great to see the police department supporting Breast Cancer Awareness Month. My grandmother was a survivor for a long time before she passed away, and my mom recently got diagnosed, and luckily, doctor said that she's going to be fine because we've got it pre-stage 1. So just want to say thank you for that. And that's all I have to report.
Romick, thank you. Paul, go ahead.
Yes, I did 2 ride-alongs in the morning, along with the Traffic Bureau, to look at the schools, the routes to school. We've met twice with the superintendent. One of the things that we discussed was valet drop-offs, which had not resumed since COVID, and 10 of the 18 principals had changed since COVID. That was mentioned in the first meeting. By the second meeting, it started again. The superintendent immediately moved on that. He spoke to us at length, Ann and I, about surveillance and security at the schools, and it's really, really comforting to see the attention to detail. On Sunday, we had our bike rodeo that I've been talking about for years, and I will just tell you, pictures of the Chief of Police and Captain Cornelius putting helmets on 8- and 9-year-olds is priceless. And there was a school board member at our Kiwanis meeting today, and the word we used was relationships. That relationship with police officers in that mode, to make them want to wear it and to make them feel that they had a positive experience with a police officer, was just priceless. And I thank you, officers, both Chief and Captain Cornelius, for being there. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Mike, anything to report?
Sure. On September 22nd, I attended the wreath presentation held by the
Burbank Police Department at the Guardian statue for in memory of Officer Richard Kunkel. He passed away in 1961, and I'm glad that you do that every year. On September 26th, though I didn't attend the joint meeting, I did want to mention that the presentation was fantastic, and that kudos both to our chairman and to all the members of our commission. You did a great job. I attended the Burbank Police Department Pink Cruiser unveiling, which was in support of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And then I also attended the State of the City address, where I met a representative from a nonprofit named Stay Motivated, which focuses on mental health and suicide prevention. I thought that might be a good contact at some point. And that's all I have.
Great, thank you, Mike. Ann?
Well, let's see. Earlier this month, I joined Mr. McKenna and Mr. Hakobian at our first meeting with the superintendent of schools, John Paramo, Dr. John Paramo. And what was good is that we set the groundwork for how we can help his concerns in traffic safety, school safety, on-campus safety, and as Paul said, already there's been progress, slow but steady. We will be having a meeting every month just to, make sure the communication is open. I also had a chance on Saturday, the 14th, to go on my first ride-along. I went with Officer Paula Campos, and if she's not listening, I went with the intent of just trying to absorb anything that I could to make me do a better job. She's phenomenal. I learned that the education needed is extensive. I learned that the commitment to the job, to the hours, to the life is critical. And just to have an open mind and at every call to be smart, alert, understanding. I walked away with a very good appreciation of the police force that we
Fantastic.
have in Burbank. As Paul said, yesterday we had our monthly meeting with Dr. Paramo, and I think that, I went to Sunday, I took my grandkids to the traffic safety, the rodeo, and they had a great time. They loved the rodeo. The little one had to walk it because she can't ride a bike yet. But they learned a lot, and I think it's great. Next year, I hope it's not as hot.
Fantastic.
And really, that's it. Thank you so much.
Commissioner
you.
Hellman was there as well all day, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Oh, that's
And Mike, go ahead.
I also attended the commission recognition dinner. I also attended the ceremony for Officer Conkle. I also attended the Coffee with a Cop on Irving and Glen Oaks. And on, about October 15th, I attended the Kiwanis Bike Rodeo at the invitation of Commissioner McKenna. And it was hard work. And Mr. McKenna did a phenomenal job.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you for that, Mike. So with that, we were going to move into oral communications for 3 minutes. So I have 2 cards here on the dais, and we'll start with those, and then we'll turn to see if we have any callers after that. So the first card we have is for Mr. Joel Schlossman. And am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for your service. All of us a few moments ago recited the Pledge of Allegiance. And it's those last 6 words that I want to talk about. It's with liberty and justice for all. And I spoke with you folks at the last meeting or the meeting before that, and I was talking about police body cameras. And I was largely ignored. Nobody responded, not even the chief of police. I received one smart aleck comment from Mr. McKenna that indicated he was clueless and did not understand what I was talking about. That you are so pro-police that you have a closed mind to anybody who questions anything out of the ordinary. So what specifically I was talking about is the ability of police officers to mute their body cameras when they're on a call, when they're in the middle of a case of something active. Of course, I'm not talking about when they're chewing the fat and they're not on a call. I'm talking about an active call. They should not have the ability to mute their cameras. That's number one. And there's many reasons for that. I mean, I don't need to go, maybe I do need to go into them with some of you. You know, you can't be so pro-police that you don't have an open mind, that you can't think one or two steps ahead of what can happen. You know, why do we wear our seatbelts? It's in anticipation of something happening. So that bothers me a lot. Now, after we have an incident where any police officer has to write a report, it doesn't sit well with me if police officers are able to review the body camera before they write the report. Because I want to know what that peace officer was thinking firsthand. I don't want the peace officer to go back and change his story, or, you know, you could see my logic behind that as well. So I understand how the Brown Act works, that all the five of you can't, you know, really deeply respond to anything I'm saying. You can agendize it if one of you thinks that what I'm saying is important enough to have a discussion, but the chief certainly can respond to anything he wants to. And, you know, I may have asked about this topic years ago, but we have new members. New members come and go. So this is an important topic to me. And I hope it's equally as important to all of you, because the last time I was here, I was just blown away, blown off, dismissed. You know, I felt, why even come down here? You know, what's the point of communications? So thank you, and I'll look forward to some kind of response. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schlossman. Next comment, next public address is coming from David Donahue. Mr. Donahue?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is David Donahue. I am a homeowner, business owner here in this wonderful city of Burbank. First, thank you very much for all your service. Several things I wanted to talk about. I was not able to address the City Council last night in the chambers regarding an issue that I would hope that the city would do, and I'm not sure if it could come here, it might not, but I want to ask anyway, to advocate for the commission to advocate that the city of Burbank join Arcadia, Artesia, Covina, Dovina, Downey, Glendora, the City of Industry, Lakewood, Laverne, Palmdale, Santa Fe Springs, and Vernon in a lawsuit designed to block the policy of zero bail. So zero bail was recently reported on a local news station that a person who was arrested for several crimes was then let out and then went on a crime spree, setting cars on fire, nearly killing some people, and damaging a florist shop in a nearby community. Having zero bail is a detriment to the safety of Los Angeles County, to any of the cities that have it. We're lucky and blessed to have probably one of the best police departments in the country with the Burbank Police Department. So we have that in our favor, but not being able to advocate for, I think, measures that would add further protection to our community, I think that would be a necessity. So that's my main reason. Then also SROs. So it was wonderful to hear one of the commissioners talking about SROs and further aligning the commission to the school board and the school administrators, Mr. Promo, I think is important. I think that we need to further show how police officers are not to be feared, which I do have a personal opinion that some of the current school board members do kind of allow that to go on and perpetrate the fact that police officers could be mean and not protective and they're going to be intimidating. That's not the message that I think that any representative of the city of Burbank should do. Children should look as police officers what they are, protectors. That's their sworn duty, and they do it extremely well. Thank you very much for your time and your service, commissioners, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Donahue. Are there any callers?
There are none.
Thank you. So we will go ahead and open it up to responses to the comments this evening. Do you have anybody that would like to start?
I may.
Paul, go ahead.
Sir, I regret that you interpreted my response that way. I was asking because when a video like that comes out in Burbank, generally the commission gets a copy of it, the edited version that hit YouTube, and the unedited version. And it's always interesting to see how you can interpret the two of them differently. So I truly was asking if we'd missed one. I wasn't making a smart aleck comment. And I will tell you, my experience from the officers I've spoken with is the body cam protects both sides. The officer leaves his body cam on, his microphone on. He's not going to be accused of saying or doing something that he wasn't supposed to do, or he or she. So I don't, yes, I do support that. I didn't mean to be disrespectful, but that's what it comes down to. When we see these videos, I wanted to make sure there wasn't a video that got past us. Thank you.
Other responses? I do have a couple of comments. So, Mr. Schlossman, thank you for bringing that to our attention. One of the things that I'm going to do as a result of this meeting, I'm not necessarily moved to agendize anything as much as I am to go back. Prior meetings are on YouTube, and we also have minutes from those meetings. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to go back and take a look and see what we've covered in the past to make sure that we're moving forward with new ground as opposed to kind of repeat the same things over and over again. So we're going to see if I'm going to take a look at that and see if those resources are available. And to Mr. Donahue, thank you for bringing your comments to us as well. I also want to take a look. I was just going to bring it up on the side, and I didn't want to distract from listening to you. Is we do keep an annual calendar, and I want to take a look at when we're reviewing school services, in addition to the wonderful work that the school safety ad hoc committee is working on. So I'm fairly certain that we've covered SRO issues related to SROs in the past, but I think we're going to be going back to that again in the near future with the work of the ad hoc committee. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. As far as the lawsuit goes, I think the best thing for me to do is I'm going to actually consult with our liaisons first before we move forward. One of the things that we've learned over the course of the past year is where we want to step versus where we want the city council to step as far as legislative activity goes. So that's something that I'll work with our liaisons on. Any other comments? Okay, thank you. We're going to go ahead and move on to the approval of minutes from August 17th. 2023.
Motion.
So Paul has a motion to approve those minutes as written, and Mike Ellman seconds that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Okay, so that passes unanimously. All right, and now we're moving on to items of business. And so we've got 4 different items in front of us this evening. The first item is a co-presentation by the Burbank Police Department's Mental Health Evaluation Team and the Street Plus on community quality of life efforts with discussion and recommendations, if any, by the commission. So welcome, and it's good to see you again.
Good evening, members of the Police Commission. Thank you for having us. Today we're going to be presenting about our relationship and collaboration between the mental health evaluation team and Street Plus. Tonight, my name is Kelly Bravo Cuevas. I'm the administrative analyst for the MET team.
Hello, Officer Anisha Kiles.
Good evening, Marcos Gonzalez with the Community Development Department.
Thank you. Welcome.
Can you please put up the PowerPoint?
Is the PowerPoint available? There we go.
Right. Thank you. Next slide. Okay. Our mental health, I'm going to provide an overview of our mental health evaluation team. I'm sure many of you know about our program, but for those, I'll re-explain it. So in 2012, the Burbank Police Department and the Department of Mental Health collaborated to create the mental health evaluation team as a result of a large influx of mental health commitments. A lot of the mental health commitments took up a lot of officers' resources, time to transport, and we were seeing a lot of individuals being re-hospitalized that could use additional support to stop that cycle of going back to the hospital. Looking back to today, our mental health evaluation team consists of one police officer, a licensed clinical social worker from the Department of Mental Health, and an administrative analyst. Our primary functions, of course, is crisis response. We respond to calls for service when an individual is in crisis. They're experiencing thoughts of harming themselves and others, if they say that. Of course, in addition to crisis response, a major part of our program is case management support. This is our bread and butter. As soon as we learned how to help people who have been rehospitalized several times, we learned that they need additional support, and that's where we come in. Our case management consists of follow-ups for people who have been rehospitalized several times or arrested several times and have a mental health condition. A subsection of that function is our homeless outreach. And just to put into perspective, 28% of the individuals we have contacted this year are unhoused. 11% of our MET activities consist of homeless outreach, and that could be merely of us introducing ourselves, offering services, and just trying to build a rapport with them in hopes that they can be receptive to services in the future. And of course, our goal is to get individuals unhoused, but our goal is providing long-term sustained care. We realize a number of the unhoused population have mental health conditions, so our work does not stop when people get housed. We realize they still need a continuous care, and that's where we come in providing mental health support, link them to the proper resources.
So good evening again, Marcos Gonzalez with the Community Development Department. And good evening, Commissioners. I'm here representing Street Plus, which is a service provider that the City of Burbank contracts with. We began our partnership with Street Plus back in 2019, which originally started through the Business Improvement District. There's many business districts throughout the state, and many of them contract with organizations like Street Plus that provides hospitality. And hospitality means that we have community ambassadors who are walking our downtown areas and providing resources to people who are visiting or people who are in need of support. So they also do such things as cleaning and sanitizing of benches, of our streets and sidewalks, and also report anything that looks suspicious or even the cleanup of graffiti. Eventually, we ended up adding more services through Street Plus by having a public safety program at the downtown Burbank Metrolink station, which is 24 hours, 7 days a week, that we have someone there on foot or on bike patrol, and making sure that all of our riders and all the people who park at the Metrolink station are safe, and have someone to talk to in case they have an issue that needs to be addressed regarding their safety. And we then expanded the program to include our social service outreach component, which is really beneficial to the city. As we've seen across LA County, the numbers for homelessness continue to rise, and Burbank is among those cities that has seen numbers range from 260 to 250 at any given time. So what we did is we added 2 homeless services liaisons, and they work in the community 5 days a week, various days of the week, so we can have a full, vast coverage. And we just added another program, or another position, which is a homeless services coordinator. So that person will be responsible to oversee the service liaisons to make sure that we respond to calls as quickly as possible and remain proactive. Because being proactive is the key to being able to address our homeless challenges here in Burbank. And on this slide, these are just some of the examples of people that we've engaged with. But these engagements are holistic. They're not used to criminalize the behavior. It's to be able to provide, as I mentioned before, a proactive approach, conducting assessments and trying to determine the needs of the person or persons. And the next piece of that is to provide referrals to different programs, which can be anywhere from our partners with Department of Mental Health, with our various service providers here in the city of Burbank and outside of Burbank as well, and ultimately to get people into housing. As of 2019, since we started our outreach and engagement with our ambassadors, our safety program, and our homeless service liaisons, we've been able to transition 154 people into a housing, and stabilizing them into housing. So that's something that we're proud of because it is part of why we were awarded we're considered an award-winning program by the International City and County Management Association. So I will let my colleagues here give you more information about our collaborations.
So good evening again. So we work closely with Street Plus, and we work closely with the operational manager, Samuel Merritt, and basically it's a phone call. We literally call each other throughout the day, and we will refer each other to different type of services that someone may need. And so a lot of the services that we provide are housing services, community-based services. One of the things that we work closely on is the city of Burbank got the opportunity to get beds to the Salvation Army, which is a rehabilitation program. So when we meet individuals that are in the street and they do want to get services for rehabilitation for drugs and alcohol, we will call Street Plus, we'll call Sam, and his team will try to coordinate with the Salvation Army. And so a lot of times that includes them picking up the individual where we're at and deliver them to Pasadena to actually getting them dropped off to the Salvation Army. Other types of services that we work together with, we have the safe storage here in the city of Burbank, and so they do the mobile showers, they provide clothing. Every month there's a different type of service that the city's providing, and that could be vaccinations, getting connected to more housing resources, if you need phones, tablets. We do that every month. Every month it's a little bit different. They allow the individuals to take showers and get connected to additional resources. One of the other things that we've been big is the reunification. So we meet with someone who is unhoused and they may consider going back home. So we work closely together, getting in contact with the families, and the families will send us their birth certificates, any type of identifying information so we can try to get them back home. And we've been pretty successful at working together to send individuals back home. Sometimes we're not as successful, but we keep in close communication with the families and give them updates and just let them know that we're continuing to work to get them back home. And then welfare checks. So sometimes when they're doing their outreach, they may have concerns that someone may need some mental assistance, and then they'll call us out to do an extra evaluation. If they do not meet the criteria, then we will try to give them referrals, and then just continue an outreach with the individual. So some of the collaborations are the encampment abatements that many of our citizens have concerns with. And so what an encampment abatement is when an individual has been living on the sidewalk or in an area for too long, Street Plus and Met will do outreach. And after a certain amount of outreaches, if they do not comply with any of the outreach, then we do the abatements and they are asked to leave. Before being asked to leave, we do still offer outreach, and sometimes it takes that moment of moving them for them to actually accept those services. Once they've been abated, that means that their belongings will be taken to the safe storage so we do not throw their belongings away. And then we give them an opportunity to come back and pick their belongings after a certain amount of period of time. So these are just what some of the encampments look like. These were some of the grocery stores. This is by our railroads. And after so many contacts with these individuals, we were actually the one at the bottom, we were actually able to get him housed. He was not a citizen of the United States, but after a lot of networking with other agencies, we were able to get him housed, and he's still housed to this day. So that it takes a long process, but we've had a lot of success stories. And here's some of our success stories.
So after several years of collaboration, of course, we want to highlight several of the success stories. So for the first one, we've known this client for several years. She was unhoused, also had mental health issues. So in a collaborative effort, we were able to get her house. We were able to get her successfully housed, but of course there came some obstacles due to her mental health issues. So when we first arrived to her unit, she was very close to the point of refusing to enter, and it took a lot of hours to give her the support that she needed, and thankfully she accepted the help. But we knew at that point, and Street Plus as well, that she was going to need a lot more care, especially mental health services, for her to stay in the unit. And that's where we came in. We linked her to, actually it's a DMH program that's geared for tenants who could be at the risk of being evicted due to their mental health issues. So luckily with that soft handoff to Met, she's able to, she's been there ever since.
And then our second story, so we actually got a call for service where a business was concerned about one of their leasing tenants' mental health. After talking to the individual, it was learned that she did violate the leasing terms by living inside of the unit, but it was because she had no more money and she had no place to live. She still violated the leasing terms, so she still had to leave. And so we called Street Plus and we worked together to send her back home to Atlanta. Street Plus coordinated with the SAFE team, and they were able to send all her belongings home for free. And so those are just some of the little things that Street Plus and Met team does to help our unhoused individuals. And so if you would like to contact Met and Street Plus, those are the numbers. Thank you. Do you have anything? No? Okay.
Thank you so much. I suspect that we'll have some, I really appreciate the work that you're doing, and I want to open it up to our commissioners and everything to ask questions and comments and everything before I dive into my list of things. So anybody want to start? Ann, go ahead.
Well, not only does it seem like you're doing a very good and effective job, it also seems to me, I'm sitting here saying, wow, they must be stretched beyond their wildest dreams, financially, emotionally. True? So what is the nature of the support or the help that you need to continue to be as effective as you are?
Well, I think right now we've done a really good job at reaching out to our community partners. And so Marcos and his team, they've done really well at getting grants and getting additional resources for us to be able to work together. But I think that's still just a work in progress of trying to get more funds to help our unhoused community.
I know that at our most recent meeting with Dr. Paramo, for some reason we got on the topic of there are homeless families in our schools, and how do we get support for those? What's the chain? How, the district hears about it at this level, and where does it go? And I know that we heard that the police department is often involved in trying to get them some kind of immediate housing, a hotel, anything, especially because you have kids involved. Is that something that you're also, I'm trying to get an idea of like what's the triangle? Who's working with who?
So we all work together. Do you want to?
Yeah, so I'll start if you don't mind. That's real important to note the families in our school district. And there is an organization that works strictly with families called Home Again Los Angeles, formerly known as Family Promise. And they work directly with the school district, the Homeless Services Liaison. And we know them very well, how they coordinate together. And motels is an option. They also have shelters for families. They try to keep the families together without having to separate them. And sometimes the families would just end up having to bunk with friends and other family members. And Home Again LA continues to provide case management so that they can eventually find a place of their own. So there is a system for that, and that's through Home Again Los Angeles.
If I can weigh in, Home Again LA and the Burbank Police Department have just recently collaborated. So if something were to occur tonight where there was an immediate need for a mom, 2 kids, is that we have a system in place to get them housed. And then Home Again LA and then our folks here will look for more sustained housing. But that was an area that we were falling short. The collaboration between Home Again LA, Albert Hernandez, we have each other's personal cell phone number. We've worked out all the credit card stuff. So if it's 3 a.m, we'll front it, and then Home Again LA will take over. And we're in a much better place. So it speaks to the city nonprofit ongoing collaboration.
Thank you.
Burbank, do you want to go ahead?
First off, I sit on the board for Home Again in Los Angeles, and Albert Hernandez is one of my best friends. And thank you for the work you guys do. And thank you for Streets Plus. Just curious to know, how are you guys working with, like, for mental health? Do you guys work with, like, other organizations, like, throughout the community with the Nonprofit Coalition or the Family Service Agency, or how's that work?
So through our partners with DMH, we're connected to a lot of different agencies and departments. So if there's a need based on age or demographics, whether they're a veteran, we kind of know who to refer those services with. Family Service, FSA, they have called us to speak and collaborate with some of the children that they're seeing. So we've kind of opened our arms and let anybody know that if we are able to collaborate, that that's what we'd like. So we've started to see a big response for that.
Yeah, let's just follow up. In that meeting, I mentioned Albert. That's Home Again LA. I apologize, I didn't prop his, but and that was a situation. It was like the first week of school. My wife came home, and frankly, she was pretty hurt that one of her children was listed as homeless. I called Albert, and he apologized that he wouldn't be able to get them into housing until Thursday. And my wife was just floored that we had those kind of resources, that he was apologizing for a 48-hour delay. So yes, the collaboration is strong, and maybe one of the things that we need to do is communicate better to our school teachers and people that have direct relationships.
Mike, go ahead.
I'd just like to check, does the funding work both for your services and for the programs that you provide? My understanding is Street Plus is a third-party organization, nonprofit organization. And now, do you contract with the police department or with the city?
Yes, the way we contract with Street Plus is through the city. The city will contract with for the homeless services. It's kind of has a little. There's different funding sources. So let me back that up. There's a Metrolink the Metrolink Safety Program. That's funded out of the transportation grant. We have the ambassadors in our downtown business improvement district. That's funded out of a business improvement district contribution. And then the homeless service liaisons, that's funded through the city's grants that we receive from the County of LA and through our general funds. So there's a pot of money, and through those resources, we can fund those Street Plus services that we're talking about today.
Are some of the services, the funding for the services, supported by donations to nonprofits, as well as with the other sources that he named?
So I know that some of our unhoused individuals that we've worked with and some of the services that they have received, we have received donations. As far as our client one that we were talking about, she had a full dental, she needed a lot of dental work, and one of our nonprofit partners ended up donating money to help her with that.
So there's not a central fund, it's
Yeah, it's
different
networking.
organizations. Okay, great. Thank you.
It would be great if it was all in one place, but it is pretty
Yeah.
spread out. And I also just wanted to lift up,
Thank you for your presentations, all of you tonight.
Yeah. Mike, I wanted to lift up also, Mr. Gonzalez is actually a employee with the city of Burbank, with the Housing Development Department. And then he works with these agencies and helps bring them in.
I don't think we met.
Yeah, yeah. Mike, you had some comments?
I guess I get to play the role of devil's advocate. Officer Kiles and I have had some discussions earlier in the year about a certain individual in my neighborhood. And the program is wonderful for people who want to cooperate with the program.
You can get the microphone.
But there are individuals who don't want your help. And there's one individual who generated lots of work for the department. So my question is, I mean, there are people who basically fall through the holes right now because they have the legal right to refuse any help. Am I correct?
Yes.
Now, I've heard that the governor signed a new bill that people can be put into institutions. I don't know what the politically correct term is now, without their okay. Is that going to change some of your processes?
Yes, so that bill will not be implemented until later, maybe like 2025 or 2026. But I do know that they are changing the rule of what a gravely disabled will be, and that will include substance abuse. But again, I cannot foresee how that would help at this moment, because right now we have to talk about where they will be housed. Because the problem that we have now is that there are a lot of people who meet the criteria and that do need hospitalization, but we don't have enough beds and enough services. So when that time does come, I know that we'll have a lot more work to do in getting those people who fall under that criteria.
Yeah.
And
I mean, right now, you spend a lot of time and effort finding help for people, and they can be in a facility and the next day they'll check themselves out.
yeah, so if we place somebody on a hold and we put them on a hold due to a mental health concern, if they were released, that was because the hospital or the facility felt that they were okay to get back out.
Isn't kind of the criteria, are they a danger to themselves or a danger to the community? And if they're not a danger to either one, they're out the door.
Yes, so the hospital is there to stabilize them, and then once they've been stabilized, that's when they try to do a long-term treatment plan.
Now, isn't stabilizers like having them leave with a prescription?
Yes, well, not leave with prescription, but they will provide them with the prescription
Right.
that they need.
And hopefully they'll take the medication.
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry to give you a hard time.
No, I actually want to continue with some of the things, Mike, that you had brought up. First, you know that this work is near and dear to my heart, and I appreciate what you're doing. I just wanted to make a comment. This is to everybody in the room. I'm thinking about over the past 5 years alone, the work that's been going on. When I joined the commission 2 years ago, there was still a fair amount of stigma around and within Burbank around law enforcement's involvement in providing mental health services, and it was relatively small. Since that time, I know that there's been work on expanding the team, and I'm hoping to hear a little about that in a little bit. But also, I'm just thinking about how we've really come to a place where providing these types of services, both services with people experiencing severe and persistent mental illness, and also addressing housing issues, it's become part of what we do in the community. And I just want to lift that up because it's a very different place than we were just 5 years ago. So I appreciate that. Sometimes we get lost in the numbers a little bit, and I know Mr. Gonzalez, you had indicated that I think through the work you're doing and the agencies you work with, I think you said there were 154 people that have gotten into permanent housing through the work that you've done so far.
The work and that number involves different types of housing
Right.
transitions. So everywhere from permanent housing to interim housing, as well as reunification, as was mentioned by Officer Kyle. So,
And the bottom line is getting people off the streets and everything too.
Correct.
It's hard to do this, but for the Met team, is it possible to? What type of caseload are you looking at? What number of folks are you guys kind of working with or following in any given year? Is there a way to kind of quantify that?
Are you asking about like the number of individuals we're averaging each year, like our contacts?
Both contacts and you'd mentioned in the presentation about following certain folks, kind of a caseload of sorts, where you're following up on folks to check on their well-being. They're known in the community. You're collectively working on providing services to them. What kind of number is that in any given year?
So I don't have my report with me, but I'm giving you a ballpark number. Last year we did do over 100 contacts, which is, no, I apologize. We have done well over 500 contacts within a given year. It's been rising, but it's hard to predict because it shifts within each person's experience. It could be due to mental health conditions, substance abuse conditions, and it could be in the gray areas where this person is experiencing a crisis because they just lost their job, they lost their family, or due to any personal reasons. But our major caseload is within follow-ups. And that could be because people have been consistently arrested, and they have a mental health condition, or they've been placed on a number of mental health holds. And our criteria is if a person's been placed on more than 2 holds within a given year, that kind of raises the flags for us. Like, why is this person going on another hold? What happened in the hospital that's kind of not working out, or the hospital doesn't have the necessary resources to continue that sustained care. And that's where we can come in and take the time, whether it's through a phone call, or a home visit, to determine what they need. And just over the past couple weeks, we've been working with an individual who hasn't even met that criteria, but we felt like it could possibly go there, and that's where we become proactive in providing employment services, mental health services, and working with the family.
It's fantastic. And the reason I'm bringing that up, and to come back to, Mike, what you were raising, is the laws are very strict about who can be hospitalized and who we can take away somebody's civil rights to place them in a hospital setting or otherwise. But there's a numbers game going on as well. And what we don't get a chance to hear about, as we heard with the housing piece, and we're hearing with the work that you're doing, is the number of people that are helped that kind of fly below the radar that the public isn't aware of. I want to go, so that's kind of like a balcony level view of this, and I want to go to the dance floor for a minute. Client number 1 was someone who, it was sometime this last winter, I think it was. I can't remember exactly the date, but client number 1 is someone that I'm familiar with in the community. They were outside the building before a police commission meeting, and I'm like, hey, what are you doing? And so I invited them to come in, and they actually hung out during it was one of our marathon meetings, by the way. So they stuck it out for like almost 3 hours. And then afterwards, we started talking and found out that everybody knew who everybody was. And it was actually the next day that your team actually got them housed. I think you were able to bring in another resource. I think it was through Street Plus that had a copy. They were missing their ID and a copy of their Section 8 voucher. And Street Plus had that the next day. And so the next day, she got housed, and she's been housed ever since. And so those are the success stories that we want to make sure that we celebrate. But I just wanted to lift up, I heard over 500 people a year that you're working with. If you've housed 154 people at this point, I'm going to guess it's probably 500 plus people that you've been doing outreach to or more to make those numbers work. So I just want to commend you for the work that you're doing and the city for making an investment in this, because this is who our community is. This is part of who we are. I do want to lift up, Romick and I have done this. Oh, Chief, go ahead.
If I can interrupt, so that we are accurate as far as our numbers, Kelly does a very detailed monthly net report update, and it's 2 pages. And it codifies our numbers. It does age breakdowns. So what we will do is we will start posting that on our website. It's very informative.
Fantastic.
Days of the week, hours of the days, so that we'll get a copy out to you, but we'll also for the community so that they can post that on a monthly, a couple days after it is approved. But it details the work that they do and also patrol. So it breaks it down as far as Met, patrol, our high utilizers, the ongoing follow-up, all the data that you're going to be interested in is in that report.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I want to encourage our commissioners to get involved. Romick and I did this last year, encourage our commissioners to get involved in the annual homeless count that takes place in January. If we can arrange to do ride-alongs again, that would be fantastic. And to be, because it's eye-opening to see the number of folks that we're working with in the community, that everybody's working with in the community. Huh?
It's kind of a walk-along.
No, it's homeless count. It's done in a car. It's done in a very safe way. Officer Kyles?
So I just wanted to leave with, because I know your concern is that some people are service resistant, but I'd like to share that a lot of the people that we've gotten housed and a lot of the people that we provided resources, those individuals weren't people that we talked to one time and they signed up for those resources. So what we like to focus on is that we continually outreach to them, and then there's always that window of opportunity where somebody says yes. And that's where we've been successful because we've done that consistent follow-up. Street Plus, Met, the CDC. I'm like, did I say that? Yes. Yes, so everybody has done continuous outreach, and that's how we've been able to house people, to get them connected. So if we just did a one-stop shop and just stopped, then we wouldn't be able to help people, but we've been able to be successful because we continue doing that outreach.
And I'm going to take my other 8 questions just down to 2, if I could. The first is what is the latest on getting an additional Met team for City of Burbank?
So we have done our interviews. We have an officer that is ready. We're just waiting on our staffing needs, and she understands what's happening. She knows what we're waiting for. We're including her in a lot of the stuff that we're working on. So we're just waiting.
Great, and I promise.
So Officer Kyles was exceptionally professional, exceptionally professional. So we're waiting on another agency. So we have everything in place. So the only thing that we don't have, and I'm embarrassed to bring it up again, is that the Met specific vehicle that is going to be compartmentalized and have all these special features is close to being done. So I'm going to take a leap here. By mid-November, we'll try to cross-staff with the other agencies so that we can get a clinician. We've selected an officer. So realistically, December, January, we would have a Met team Monday through Saturday and 2 Sundays a month for 12 hours a day. That's the goal.
Great. Feel free to name that other department if you want to.
No.
So the second question, and this is a broader question. You may or may not be aware of this, but I'm curious, and this actually comes back to what Mike Ellman was bringing up. Are any of you familiar? Actually, this is a question for all of you. Are any of you familiar with the upcoming implementation of something called Care Court? Has that come across? Has there been any discussion or planning around that, and how that might impact the work that you're doing?
Yes, so we recently just spoke with the program director who's in charge of the Care Court. We've had a couple of families outreach to us, and they had some questions. So we did a short training just so we can get familiarized with it, and we'll be doing additional training with the other Met teams so that we can provide better information to our families in Burbank.
So for clarification for everyone, there's a program that is existent right now called Assisted Outpatient Treatment, and it's a team, they're not officers, it's a team of clinicians and case managers that do intensive outreach to, and they're kind of like, they knock on the door, they're here to help, and if they don't want any help, okay, we'll come back again, and they come back a couple of days or a week later or something, and they keep on going for an extended period of time to try to establish that relationship. Care Court is similar to that in the sense that it's going to be doing that, but there's going to be an actual court that's involved in this, and so hopefully that'll help provide some leverage and support as well for the work that you're doing and for the work that the street outreach teams are doing as well.
We're hopeful.
Thank you. Any other questions that commissioners have? All right, I want to thank you for your time and really appreciate always hearing from you.
Thank you.
All right, our next item that's up is, this is our back-to-school safety presentation by the Traffic Bureau and report out by the School Safety Ad Hoc Subcommittee with discussion and recommendation, if any, by the commission. Lieutenant Frommer, welcome.
Chair Coombs, distinguished commissioners, thank you. Glad to be back, and thank you again for the opportunity to speak in front of you. Always love talking about traffic safety, something near and dear to our hearts. I brought along with me, again, Lieutenant John Fromer with the Burbank Police Department Traffic Bureau, and I brought with me today, my good wingman here, Sergeant Fletcher Stone. I think he's done a presentation in front of you before, so hopefully you're familiar. Today we will be discussing back-to-school safety, give you a little oversight on what we do and our responsibilities in partnership with the BUSD. And before I start, thoughts and prayers go out to your mom and family. And then thank you all for being open to having conversations with us and stimulating conversation on traffic safety. I appreciate the approach that each of you take to get educated on what we do, what our role is, and hearing our side before we make any decisions on any of the information you gleaned. Do I just hit the button here, Sherry? All right. So again, we're familiar, Lieutenant John Fromer. Little understanding on the BUSD. This is their instructional calendar for this year, 2023-2024. They opened school up on August 14th, which was a Monday, and then they're going to end school on a Thursday, May 23rd. They have 2 breaks in between. We like to take advantage of some of those breaks when school is out to have discussions with some of the school faculty as well as administrators, and then also get our officers to the school campuses, because unfortunately in this day and age there are some unfortunate reasons for police to respond to campuses in emergency situations, and we like our officers to actually see the campuses of some of these schools. We don't want their first time being on campus to be in an emergency situation. If I go to the next slide here, this is what we are responsible with, making contact with the school principals and school staff. You'll see here a total of 11 elementary schools. Those schools are pre-K and kindergarten all the way up to 6th grade. And then you have our middle schools. We have 3 middle schools in the city. That's typically 7th through 8th. And then we have our 3 high schools. I don't want to forget about, we have some alternative BUSD school campuses. Just to name them off, that's the Burbank Adult School, Horace Mann Children's Center, Community Day School, Independent Learning Academy at Magnolia Park School. And then there's some private schools in town. We actually, when you actually look up the number of private schools, we have more than I initially thought we had. Some of these involving a lot of preschools, private preschools, but then we also have some religious centers such as, who do ask for our services and ask for a presence because they deal unfortunately with the same traffic issues that our public schools are dealing with. And that's Providence High School, St. Robert Bellamy School, St. Vinbar, and St. Francis Xavier. I think we're, hopefully most of us are familiar. When we start our back to school program, this is how we take the approach. We have, we're slotted to have 12 motor officers in the Traffic Bureau. Obviously, everybody is a little plagued with staffing issues in the law enforcement families right now. We're down a few officers, but we're still doing good hard work, and we assign 2 to 3 schools to each motor officer. Those assignments are given so that those officers create a relationship with the school and school staff. When school starts, they are to go out there, meet with the principals, And this is strategically so. They have a face-to-face conversation. They know who they can contact within the police department to address traffic and parking concerns, as well as any other concerns they may have. That is a good point of contact. So when they meet with the school officials, they're discussing safety. This is their opportunity to identify specific concerns. Every school has their own unique problems, and it could be because of the environment, the layout of the school. Some schools, you'll have three sides of traffic, you can have three open lanes of traffic. Some schools are, all four sides of the school campus have traffic issues. The motor officers bring those concerns back to the Traffic Bureau command staff that typically start with Sergeant Stone. I have another Sergeant Canellis, and then we address them as a group. And then if we can have an immediate impact, we will. But if this is a bigger conversation, such as involving the traffic engineer's office, community development department for something as simple as adding additional signage, no parking signage, anything of that nature. We send the motor officers out the first 2 weeks. The goal is education. You'll hear a lot in traffic, in the world of traffic, the 3 E's: enforcement, education, and engineering. We'll touch on primarily the enforcement and education aspect here, because that does fall largely on us, but in partnership with the school as well, especially for the education component. After those 2 weeks, it's a fair amount of time, that educational approach will transition to enforcement, which nobody's ever happy about. However, what we're looking for is not to upset people, not to give tickets to our citizens, to our parents. However, what we're looking for is compliance. So after those 2 weeks, I'll tell you that obviously when the motor officers are there, people like to mind their manners and abide by the laws. When we're not there, there can be a little bit of madness. That morning rush, you have the morning drop-off and you have the afternoon pickup. Some of the elementary schools, you have the kindergarten, the early bird and late bird classes in the middle of the afternoon. So those tend to be where you get the congestion and you have the conflicts between vehicles, pedestrians, bicyclists, skateboarders. It's that rush hour that you're gonna have the problems. When we transition to the enforcement aspect, it is enforcement. We do give the citations, and what we will typically see is after 2 to 3 weeks of enforcement, you will see that the issues that we're dealing with will clear up. However, without continued enforcement, they will return. I'll go through just real quick a list of the issues. These are just common violations that we deal with and that the school is aware of. The school tries to impact as well. They'll have the principal, faculty members out there. They do contact and address parents, and they do contact and address students. It's easier for them to give this information, provide this information, especially on safety tips and safety aspects, because the children are a captive audience once they're in school, and they can hold classroom sessions where they specifically touch on these topics. The harder audience to reach is the parents. But they typically will get an email base from the parents of all the children that attend the school, and they try to do the outreach through that method, through that medium. Just real quick, parking in the red zone, parking in the valet zone. The valet zone is a big issue because that is meant to create some order to the chaos. It funnels the vehicles into a coned-off section along the sidewalk of the school that is adjacent to the school. Unfortunately, we do have parents with younger children who like to park and walk their children into the school, which disrupts the whole purpose of the valet line, which is to simply drop off the children at the curbside and move along so that we can have an orderly flow to traffic. Obviously, when they park and exit the vehicle, it creates more congestion, and we no longer have the opportunity to use the valet zone for which it was created. The double parking, and then I'll put these two together, the stopping in the traffic lane. This is problematic because they're letting children out in the street. Unfortunately, you have a lot of impatient parents who are trying to get to school or some other appointments when they're trying to drop their child off, especially when they're late for drop-off or pushing that magic time frame. They will hurry. When a vehicle stops in the lane, they will try to drive around. Unfortunately, sometimes those cars stop because the child's crossing the road. They don't see that as they're trying to pass, and we have that conflict or a collision. The Stop sign violations, obviously a huge issue. And we have some conflicts with that. We don't want any pedestrians or any of our children hit simply trying to cross the roadway to get to school. U-turns from the curb, another issue that creates and adds to that congestion on that roadway where the parents are trying to do the drop-off. Crossing double yellow lines, usually at the intersections, you'll notice there will be a set of double yellow lines for several feet leading up to the limit line at that intersection. Vehicles are not supposed to pass on that side of the roadway at the intersection because of visibility issues and pedestrian issues. Cell phone use, we all know about distracted driving. That's the last thing that we want parents to be doing while they're driving in a zone full of children. And then failure to obey crossing guard directions. Included in that, we will get parents that try to do a drop-off in the middle of a crosswalk, which nobody ever wants, because now they are in the exact location we want our children to cross the roadway for safety. And that creates a big visibility issue as well. Short video, this is part of the educational component. We put this out last year. This is from the Traffic Bureau. Oddly enough, you'll notice in here while we were doing our filming, we had a violation that ended in a citation as well. I think you'll be able to pick it out. Sherry, how does it play? All right. Some of us may get that. I won't go through these, but just to know, we do provide publications. We have several agencies, the CHP, the AAA Auto Club. Several of them have come together and collaborated to produce free. This is free to us, and this is free to the schools. They have flyers, safety flyers, and this is all on safety tips. And this will cover anything from walking to school, biking to school, skateboarding to school. And also to the parents. It specifically will address the parents on driving tips. These are the dangers you should be aware of and try to avoid while driving in a school zone for the specific purpose of dropping off your children. I will cover this because this is some of the serious issues that we're dealing with the parents. I'll tell you right now, I get a lot of complaints in the Traffic Bureau that will come directly to me. Half of the parents are upset over the driving they observe around the schools. The other half of their parents are calling me to complain about gentlemen like Sergeant Stone who give them tickets for bad driving behavior. So we are out there. Obviously, we would like to do more. We would like to have more resources to do that, but this is a goal we'd like to accomplish and still collaborate with the school, with the parents. We would like to, we try to touch on these main topics. Obviously, there's a lot more things to go into detail. I'll just keep this on the top categories. Don't use your cell phone while you're driving around the school. Don't be distracted. Don't park across the street from the school. In the valet programs, they put the valet drop-off on the side of the street where the school is located. We will get a lot of parents that don't want to sit in the line to wait because they have other appointments to go to. Will park on the other side of the street. Unfortunately, when you do this, your children have to walk across the street, and that can create the conflict because you have the crosswalks at the end of the block. Typically, where the schools open a gate to enter the school property is somewhere near mid-block without a crosswalk. Some people point out, why don't you add a mid-block crosswalk? They're not as safe as you think because it's not controlled. There's no stop signs. There's no traffic signals. Especially if there's no crossing guard, that can create its own dangers, such as the vehicles trying to drive around when somebody stops in the middle of the road. We would like the parents that do stop on the opposite side of the street to actually exit the vehicle and walk with their children if they're of that age. Different story when you're talking about middle school and high school, but with the elementary schools, we would like to see the children not running across the street on their own. We want the parents to learn about the valet program. This is something we're working on with the schools right now. I've met with several principals. The chief set up a meeting with BUSD last week. This is with all the school principals and some of the school administrators. As a result of that meeting, having that face-to-face contact, I've had several follow-up phone calls. They're all interested in traffic safety and adding traffic safety measures. So what we've done is we've found Stacy Cashman as a central point of contact for BUSD. I don't know if any of you have had the luxury of speaking with her. Fantastic resource for BUSD. We're going to use her as the primary point of contact to try to create a program for each of the schools. Once it's adopted at one or two schools, we can mirror that at all of the school locations, especially if it's successful. Okay. Teaching the children about the drop-off pickup zones. So about the valet program itself, part of the purpose of having that, you have a centralized location to send vehicles. We would like the children that walk, bike, and skateboard to school to use a different route from where the school drop-off zone is, so we don't have that vehicle versus student conflict. I think we already talked about stopping in the middle of the roadway. And then one of the biggest issues we'd like to get to the parents is to reduce aggressive driving and the pressure of being rushed, which is caused by the congestion, the valet line, and everything else in the school zone. Give yourself more time, leave earlier to drop your children off with plenty of time to spare. We all know that everybody struggles with that, but we would like to get that message across to the parents. Now, stemming from our triple fatal collision that we had in 2021, it was August of 2021 where 3 young adults lost their lives at Glen Oaks and Andover. The chief was one of the biggest proponents and helped create in the high schools a traffic safety education course. This was done through our COPS Bureau with Lieutenant Green and done with the motor officers with Sergeant Stone and a couple of our very knowledgeable motor officers. We created a curriculum to teach to the students in high school. We wanted to reach young drivers before they ever got behind the wheel, so this started with 9th grade students. So on an annual basis, approximately 1,350 students in the schools combined between John Burroughs and Burbank High School. We teach an introduction to the basic rules of the road, distracted driving and impaired driving, and speed and reckless driving. Very important, especially the speed and reckless driving, because that one hits close to home because of the collision on Glen Oaks. We continue to release the same information and the same messages that we're doing in the high schools. We're releasing that on social media. You'll see, such as the short video I showed, we touch on these same topics. The result of this in the schools, obviously, we're not going to really realize the fruits of our labor on this one for a couple of years until those drivers get behind the wheel. But what this has done, because part of this component, and this was near and dear to the chief, have the children give a portion of this curriculum, of this course, to tell the children to go home, open and engage conversation with your parents, but ask them a simple question. Have you been impacted by a traffic issue or a traffic collision where somebody was seriously hurt or killed? And unfortunately, far too many people and far too many parents have stories about that, whether it's not their family directly, but friends in high school, friends in college. They will have a story, and it's that conversation between the parents and the students and their own children that are going to be more impactful than a guy like me standing up in front of a podium at the school, who they don't know and don't have a relationship with. So I think that's been very beneficial. And the feedback from the school, the parents, and the community has been very positive, to the point they want to spread this out amongst all the grades. And then we even had private school, Providence High School, reach out to ask if we could incorporate that into their curriculum. School valet program, as I just touched on, unfortunately coming out of COVID, some of the valet programs weren't reinstituted at each of the elementary schools. We do this at each of the elementary schools. We have motor officers specifically trained to go to the schools and provide training and support. We will help facilitate the training, but the actual administration of the program is the school's responsibility, and it can be individual to each school. Each school can do it in a different manner. Some principals do not like using volunteer parents because they don't want some parents scolding or admonishing other parents of the school to create a conflict there. So a lot of the schools will use sixth graders, sometimes more mature fifth graders, to assist with the valet program. And that program is, as the cars pull up, you will actually see the children help open the door for where the child's seating in the back seat. The child exits safely onto the sidewalk, and the parent, there's a very good exchange between everybody there, and then they drive away. So leave room for the next cars to come up, and it creates that order that we're looking for. We want all the schools, I think Chair Coombs, you mentioned the number of new principals at the schools. So a combination between COVID and the changeover in some of the principals and administrators, we're trying to get this program up and running again. We're being successful. I think a majority of the elementary schools have reinstituted this. However, after visiting them last week, we need to update the signage, and we need to update the overall length of these. They're very short. Some of these schools have a valet section of signage where it's no parking from the morning drop-off period and the afternoon pickoff period. The times are off because the schools after COVID have changed their timeframes. And then they're not long enough. It's probably only about 5 or 6 car lengths, which isn't nearly enough for the amount of parents that actually drive their children to school these days. So I'm working with Edward Yu in the Public Works Traffic Engineer's Office to look at extending those on several sides of the school and trying to get the school to utilize the best method to direct parents to drop off their children. The city has a good computer graphic designer. So we're going to look at making decent maps. We want to make something that's appealing to people. But we're going to make some maps on the proper way, depending on what direction you're coming from within the city to approach the school, on which street you should turn down to drop off your child. And then we're also going to ask the schools to send out somewhat of a survey the parents to give me some metrics. Who drives their children to school, who bikes to school, who walks to school, what direction do you come from? Just some basic information to help us in our quest to give them more of a program on how to drop off children in the valet program. One other thing that's important is the Complete Streets program. This was adopted in June 16, 2020, which included a safe route to school project goal. There was only 3 schools identified in that for that goal. That's John Muir Middle School, Thomas Jefferson Elementary, and it was also George Washington Elementary. The purpose of that is, like I said before, once you adopt a safe route program for those schools, you can take that model and transition it to all the other schools. So that's the beginning. I don't know exactly where they're at in that phase. I know previously the federal government used to fund the Safe Routes to School program, which I believe they no longer are. So they're looking at alternative sources, and I know that this is run through the Community Development Department, and I know they're looking at other grant funding to get this job done. I tried to get a little bit more information about where they are in that process, but I know there's a lot of traffic intersections and streets in that Complete Streets program for traffic control design, they call it traffic calming with speed bumps, bulb outs, and additional things such as raised crosswalks to get people to slow down, such as the downtown San Fernando Boulevard reconfiguration. That's part of that Complete Streets initiative. So I think the safe routes to school is coming shortly after that, but I don't have a definitive date for you at this time. But I can get you that information. And the Community Development Department has a great link on the City of Burbank website. If you wanted to look up the information in the Complete Streets Initiative, just click on it. They have several PDFs and several maps to give you all the information you need.
For clarification before you go on, you said that the Safe Routes to School program or the Complete Streets program included only 3 schools?
The Safe Routes to School is a program.
Right.
Several cities have it.
Okay.
That for the city of Burbank was included in the Complete Streets Initiative. That, I went through this back in 2018 to 2020 when we had all the city departments, all the stakeholders were involved in these conversations. The actual plan was adopted in 2020. So you're going to see a slow implementation of all of those initiatives in the Complete Streets program. Safe Routes to School is one of those. All right, and then if anybody has any questions, I'm open to anything we discussed.
Well, let's open up, because we're talking about this, questions that we have for Lieutenant Fromer, and then also we want to roll into a report out from the subcommittee, or the ad hoc subcommittee as well. So let's open it up to questions, Dr. Fromer, or Sergeant Fromer, Lieutenant Fromer,
There you go.
Sergeant Stone.
You can just call me John.
There we go. Who helped me with a goat head in a issue that we don't talk about publicly, but let's open it up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Coombs. Lieutenant Former, Sergeant Stone, thank you so much for this presentation. It's very thorough, very detailed. I know offline we've had these conversations and, attended the St. Leon's presentation as well. That was really wonderful. I know that, I think signage education, I think is extremely important. I know the street safety, reckless driving is something that I'm really passionate about. And one thing that I've seen that's consistently worked on, from the stretch from Alameda to Providencia moving west, there's a speed tracking device that says how fast people are going. I have seen people, because I remember prior to that being there, people were bulleting up that street at 60, 70 miles an hour. But now, when it starts flashing red after it hit over 35, I'm seeing a lot of people slow down. So I've seen that as a deterrent, which has been really nice. But I also have been hearing about like speed tracking cameras that some of the cities have been piloting. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, just an overview on that. I believe there's 6 cities that jumped on that. It's a pilot program. I know that Assemblymember Laura Friedman, it's one of her initiatives, that's one of her bills. But it's speed enforcement cameras. They're typically being done in the pilot program at a larger city. Because unfortunately what comes along with that new technology comes a lot of litigation behind that as to the validity of it, how it works, how it operates. Is it good for the community or not good for the community? Obviously, anything we can do to get people to slow down, I'm 100% supportive of. But as a medium-sized city, it may not be the best option to start with, but after it has been tried, tested, and proven, I think that 100% we should bring that to the city of Burbank. I personally would like to see this pilot program tested before we engage in getting the funding to get the equipment, the hardware, the software. And unfortunately, that's going to come with personnel too attached to that, right? It may not. It's when this program concludes after the year, maybe they can do like similar third-party management over that or oversight over it. But in some fashion, it will have some tie to the city of Burbank Police Department.
And even though Gina O snuck out of the room for a moment, we should try to stay focused on back to school safety with the traffic bureau, as opposed to going to other areas with traffic. So, other questions for Lieutenant? Mike, go ahead.
Your new parking fees, their involvement with school safety.
Right now is limited, and that's purely because of staffing. It is a pilot program, and we started at a reduced number of personnel. The plan, obviously, is to grow that number of personnel to be suitable to meet all the needs and demands of the city, which are quite a bit for parking. And one of those needs and one of those concerns come from the community, is specifically the schools. When we talk about the double parking, the red zones, parking in the crosswalks, 100% a valid need for them to be at the schools. But again, we're talking about, 20 plus, between the public and private schools that we personally deal with on a daily basis, you're talking about 20 plus schools. So trying to get personnel and resources to the morning drop-off for the elementary schools in the mid-afternoon for the kindergarten classes, and then for the afternoon drop-off. It's a matter of logistics, just getting the resources there. We have to do it on a rotating basis, but is to come.
You brought up that your department is providing classroom for ninth graders. How many hours of education are you guys doing?
So those courses are about an hour. Yeah, I believe their periods are about an hour long or just over an hour. But it's during one of their health classes has given us that a day to do that instruction with the students. It's typically held in April and May of the year of the school year, but it's an hour-long course that they do with the students.
So it's not like when dinosaurs like me were in school, we had driver's education for an entire semester.
Right,
Okay.
right. I'm in that category. I had that as well. Very beneficial, but obviously the schools are balancing the needs of what they need to give time for. I think traffic safety is important, and I thank the chief for making this happen.
Yeah, we bring up the 3 E's. I want to talk about engineering. Other cities, you see you push a button and there's flashing lights in the pavement. This warn drivers that somebody's crossing. Anything happening in Burbank with that?
So I've had those discussions with the traffic engineer, and that's definitely something that's on their radar. This is also part of the Complete Streets initiative for safety, especially in key areas, schools being one of them. But yes, there are conversations about utilizing that new technology. I'm sure if you drive into Glendale, you've seen a couple of their intersections that have the flashing lights at
Grand
the
Boulevard.
cross. So that's the first one that comes to my mind. But there are discussions with the traffic engineer's office with that.
Also, can you compare, I guess statistically, the difference in problems, accidents, citations between drop-off and pickups in terms of school letting out versus school starting? Because my experience is, I live a block from Jefferson. School letting out is getting crazier than ever.
Typically, what we saw in the past was the morning drop-off was the most hectic because everybody had a place to be after they did the drop-off, a majority of the drivers. But we are starting to see in the afternoons, it can be just as hectic as it is in the morning, especially with the congestion and amount of people. But we have seen a reduction in parents walking children to school, or some of the junior high and high schools walking to school. We see a lot of parents driving in to the schools. So that contributes to what you're seeing. More cars.
I just want to add, Mike, some of the questions that you're asking too, our school safety ad hoc committee may be able to pull and report out on some of that information as well. So we don't just have to wait for the department necessarily to report back on that, but we can ask our colleagues to take a closer look into that and bring information back to us. So other questions for Lieutenant Frommer? Mike?
A little bit on what Mike was saying. How do you measure from year to year how successful the program is? Have we, over the last couple of years, had an increase or decrease in safety incidences at schools?
Yeah, so I could tell you, things were thrown off a little bit with COVID, and the schools were actually shut down during that school year. As they came back, unfortunately, we've seen dangerous driving behavior that was exhibited with less people on the roadway. People thought they could drive a little faster, run through the stop signs at a little more aggressive pace because they didn't expect other vehicles or people to be on the roadway. That's been our biggest concern, is that aggressive driving that's continued as traffic volumes have returned to normal levels pre-COVID. But to let you know, we're not having children hit at the schools. Typically, when we do have one of the students, they're intersections away from where the actual school location or school site is. But as far as trying to control the congestion, it's difficult because Burbank's a completely built-out city. Other schools, if you look at some of the newer school locations, almost all of them have an on-property drop-off and pickup, kind of like a long street drive. It's more of a drive-through location. Unfortunately, in the city of Burbank, we can't create that or replicate that because you'd have to remove portions of the school property, which nobody wants to do because that's prime real estate, especially for what they need for the schools and for the students. So what we're trying to do is work with the schools. There's other things we've tried, such as staggering the start and release times. But unfortunately, nobody really wants to come in earlier or stay later and change your work hours or change your work day. And that doesn't always alleviate the problems that we've been seeing. I think one of the biggest things is working with the schools on the education component. We want them to start getting this out on their own websites, and we want them to take an active participation in this as well, and not rely solely on us to come up with the information, because they have very specific things that they're seeing at their school sites that we may not be seeing, that they need to help us get that message out to the parents. So one of the primary things is going to be, can we increase carpooling? You get a lot of solo drivers dropping their children off. Can we try to get back to carpooling, especially with children or friends in the same neighborhood? If we can reduce numbers of vehicles, if we can get the education out about trying to use the valet program, I think we'll be successful. But again, it's like a restart button after COVID, and especially with some of the schools not reinstituting the valet program immediately, we're getting there. But we'll get back to that point.
I do have a question related to that. You mentioned that each motor officer is assigned roughly 2 to 3 schools that they work with. You'd already mentioned that getting the valet program up and running has been problematic because of new leadership and also coming out of COVID. Have those meetings been going okay between the motor officers and the schools because of, just in general, because of the leadership changes? Have the schools been receptive to, and the principals been receptive to having those meetings?
Right, very, very receptive. The meeting that the chief had us attend last week with BUSD at the administrative building was fantastic. Face-to-face, business cards exchanged. Every one of the principals was extremely involved, engaged, and concerned about traffic safety. Most of them have already contacted me, but as I said, it's going to be better if I use Stacy Cashman as the point of contact. So we'll create this plan, and I can definitely report back and give you some more information on how that goes.
Great, fantastic, thank you. Any other questions for Senator Frommer?
I don't know if it's questions or follow up on the report.
Yeah,
So
let's do that then. Let's go ahead and shift then, and we'll go to the ad hoc committees reporting out and to talk a little about that. So Lieutenant Frommer, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, my 2 ride-alongs were actually with Sergeant Canales, so this is the first time I get to meet Sergeant Stone.
He doesn't let me do ride-alongs with him.
But
I asked.
The chief hasn't authorized the sidecar.
Okay.
Well, and that's exactly right. Poor the sergeant had to give up his motor and put me in a truck to take me out there. But it was very educational. He didn't gloss over anything. He pointed out problems. I also was incredibly impressed with his restraint. It's amazing how the touch of the siren will encourage people to do the right thing, and if not, the loudspeaker really does. So it was educational. The education, I'm glad it's been extended to Providence High School. Going back to film school, one of the things we learned was scare tactics don't work. Understanding does. So creating understanding, I think, is something that would last. And I appreciate that you're spending time with that, especially because all of us remember that August night. As for the drop-off and the pickup, the drop-off is a moving line. And as the lieutenant pointed out, it's people coming, going, and getting out of both sides of the car in the moving line. The pickup is people standing stagnant. 3rd Street is, the entire street is double parked at 3 p.m. Where in the morning, it's rapidly moving. And there's only so much you can do about that. I guess, and as the lieutenant also pointed out about build out, one of the suggestions that came up even at Disney Elementary, because we have a very noticeable crossing guard there, that they could theoretically, if it worked out with the school, with the Park and Rec, they could drop off in the park and then get crossed, and that would take them off of Clark. It was just an idea that was thrown out, and I don't know how feasible it is, because I know it's dealing with another agency, Park and Rec, and people are going to have to walk an extra 10 feet if they did that. But I would venture to say that you've answered a lot of the questions that we have put up in the last year, and my time with Sergeant Canales and our time with our superintendent has just told me that there is no suggestion that anybody doesn't want to listen to. There is no piece of advice that would be ridiculed, and the amount of respect and given to our parents, even when they have a phone in their hand, trying to convince them to do the right thing, I think plays a lot in the long run. But like you said, the Disney thing, going back to there, my son went to St. Finbar, and they started the drive-through probably about 10 years ago. And I remember how effective it was, but they did have a parking lot that wasn't being used during that time, and they could do that. The other thing I wanted to say also that the schools have done, coming from the Traffic and Transportation Commission. We have a lot of four-way stops near our schools that are called non-complying. They are out of code with the state of California, and that came from parents putting in emails and talking to the city council. And I remember Oak and Myers when it was first put in, and the mayor at the time, I believe, was Just Almontes, who said, why don't we do this at all schools? And there's a lot of stop signs that have gone in since that I think give a tool for the traffic to help enforce and hopefully make people a little more aware that there is a school zone. So I hope that I didn't ramble on too long, but
You're good. Let's give Ann a chance, because you recently joined the school safety subcommittee, and I know that you were really instrumental in getting a meeting going with the superintendent almost immediately.
Hello. Yes. I think, well, as a person, if I have an idea, I want to just get that ball going. I just want to get it going. And I think that it's good to know that you have a specific person at the district, because that's how that works. I think that any help that we can lend you from that committee, going to principals, your time is valuable. Perhaps we can find some time and help out. I think that we all have experience with our own children, grandchildren, of what schools are like, having dropped off my kids. I know the parameters, where the bugaboos are. So I just think, offering my time it's yours.
Appreciate that. So, quick question. This is actually, Gina, I need to pull you into this a little bit as well, because this is a reporting out. It's with the Traffic Bureau and with the School Safety Ad Hoc Subcommittee. We'd spent some time earlier talking about previous meetings, talking about subcommittees and the time limited piece. One of the things that I'm aware is going on is in the work that the school subcommittee is doing, the Ad Hoc School Subcommittee is doing, is that School Safety Subcommittee is doing, is that they're meeting on an ongoing basis with the superintendent of schools, and that just recently started. I wanted to check in with you to see if there are any questions or issues or concerns about time frame, because they're meeting on a periodic basis to address these issues. Do you need to provide us some guidance on time frame, time limitation, anything like that?
So the Brown Act does not say that subcommittees, ad hoc subcommittees are limited to a certain time. Wouldn't it be nice if they gave us that kind of clear guidance? But they don't. But what's good for us in that regard is, as long as you are still working on the subject matter of that ad hoc subcommittee and that work is not finished, you can continue that ad hoc subcommittee.
Fantastic.
So there's, there are time limits sometimes, but it's also subject matter, right? As long as there is an end goal. So, for example, the difference would be if you were having an ad hoc subcommittee and the purpose of that ad hoc subcommittee was to, on an ongoing basis, meet with the school superintendent, say. And there's no end goal to that. It is just something that they're going to do regularly till the end of time or end of police commission. That would be an unending subject matter. And so that would be, that would not be an ad hoc subcommittee, right? That would become a standing subcommittee, and it would be subject to all the Brown Act requirements. But let's say that you had a very particular purpose that you wanted to meet with the superintendent. You want to meet with the superintendent to discuss school safety regarding installing four-way stop signs or whatever, what Commissioner McKenna was talking about. If there's a specific goal and purpose for that subcommittee, it remains an ad hoc subcommittee. So that's why when we had that discussion of, several meetings back now about how you define your ad hoc subcommittee and what its purpose is, that's where it's going to come in. And I have to say, sitting here now, I don't recall what the specific wording was about the goal of this ad hoc subcommittee.
Right. I don't remember offhand too, but I know that there are two issues that we've been exploring. One of them is the traffic safety. So I really appreciate, and that's going to be an ongoing piece of work for the department to continue to address, and we appreciate that. So one of the things I would ask this group's ad hoc subcommittee to focus on is taking a look as far as street safety goes, or as traffic safety goes with schools, is to one, explore what the end point is for the work that you're doing on that. But the The second piece is, and we haven't even begun to address it, I'm looking forward to a report out later on, is the ongoing work around the issues related to school resource officers. That is something that's part of the school safety piece that we had identified previously, and that's yet unresolved at this, as far as I'm concerned right now.
And do you mind if I report on that?
Go ahead. Well, I was just going to say.
Oh,
So if I could just follow up
Sure.
with this train of thought, I don't want to talk too much about it since it's not on our
Right.
agenda today. What I would recommend is that we put all of the subcommittee discussion back on the agenda so that we can check in
Okay.
with our ad hoc committees to make sure that we all understand what its purpose is and what.
I don't want to
So-
go there. I don't want to do that again,
Well, we
but
wanna make-
getting
we want to make
reports out
sure
and
that
clear.
they remain ad hoc subcommittees, right, and that they haven't morphed
Okay.
into something else.
So we'll try to frame
Future
it.
agenda.
Yeah, we'll work on it as a future agenda item, and we'll work on framing that so it's focused on reporting out and getting updates on what the status is of those
So
subcommittees.
my
Okay.
assumption for tonight's agenda is for the, for this particular school safety ad hoc subcommittee,
Right.
that you met its purpose, and that was the point of it being on the agenda tonight and reporting out.
So the school, just for clarification, then the school resource officer piece was not in your understanding.
Oh, it was brought up.
It was brought up when we had that conversation with Dr. Paramo. We had a conversation about SROs, and I believe it was a really meaningful conversation because Dr. Paramo his position was there were some family communities that feel like having an officer on campus could intimidate some of the children. However, the conversation that led to was understanding that he appreciates and loves the work that our SRO, Keona Roberts, does. However, he also understands the workload that she has to work with as far as the cases and as far as the child abuse cases and the support that she needs. So he understands the importance of having an additional SRO officers for the Burbank Police Department. So that is an ongoing conversation that we are having.
Okay,
And
but
real-
how's that related to our agenda
So,
item today?
so there's two items there. It's the back-to-school safety presentation by the Traffic Bureau and report out by the School Safety Ad Hoc Committee. And so this is a piece of the work that the School Safety Ad Hoc
Safe-
Committee's been
okay,
working
sorry.
on. Yeah, we're okay right now.
Let's follow up on that. Is one of the things that Superintendent told us the other day was there has been movement on that, as Commissioner Hagopian said, because of pure workload, that about welcoming in a second as a school resource officer. But I want to say, most importantly, is when Ms. Wetzel set up the meeting, I thought it was going to be an hour meeting. And about 45 minutes into it, the superintendent said, I have no accountability to you unless we have another meeting. And he immediately scheduled another meeting. And I thought that says more about he wasn't giving us an hour. He was truly giving us his attention, and he truly wants to be active and involved in this. He could have easily been polite to us for an hour, but he's invited us back in recurring meetings, and I think that says a lot about the direction we're going in the relationship between Burbank School Board, school district, and our traffic division. Our
Right. So the piece that I would ask then is tonight, it seems like the traffic safety piece is, we've kind of wrapped that one up pretty well as far as the ad hoc committee goes. What's the outstanding piece is the status and any new recommendations regarding the school resource officer. It sounds like there is discussion in those meetings of support of that there needs to be additional staffing, but there's some issues there that I'm not clear on about, are we talking about how many school resource officers, where would they be located, budgeting-wise related to the department? So it still feels like there's a little bit of work that specifically needs to be addressed.
Absolutely, but what was indicated to us was there was movement.
Okay.
And I don't want to commit to anything else. I don't want to put him on the spot. But his talking to the school board and just mentioning to them the volume of work that the single officer has to do, that there was movement on that.
So what was I'm sorry, for clarification, was, from the school's point of view, is the desire to have the meetings with our ad hoc committee for a specific purpose, like, or they just want some kind of ongoing communication so that you can act as almost a liaison between the police department and the school?
I think it's evolving, but I also think that almost every year it would reset. At one point, we had a meeting scheduled on this like in October, and my question was, that's kind of like closing the door after the horse got out of the barn. You know, we should be having this in like July or August as we're prepping for the year. And I think it's the same principle. Every year, parameters are going to change, the volume of students are going to change, whether students come from our own permits and come from out of town, things of that nature. So I think that you can probably have a subcommittee for this school year
So,
and then reappoint one for the new school year.
yeah, so we can, let me go ahead and interject right now. So we can do that, but we have to agendize it and plan it out. And we can do that with the calendar as opposed to an ongoing committee. The concern that I've got is that there's still one outstanding issue that we don't, that the subcommittee doesn't have resolution on yet with the superintendent around clarifying and taking a look at some parameters and some recommendations specifically around school resource officers. So what I'm going to recommend is that the subcommittee keep working at this. There is another meeting that you'd mentioned that's on the calendar. If there's a way to come back and bring that report out during our reporting out period in the meetings on recommendations that have been made, and then we can turn that over to work between the department and the school district itself. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. And the reason why I'm being so vague is because I believe you're talking about staffing and funding and things that are out of our
Correct.
control. And I don't want to talk about things that the chief would be better to brief us on. Our next meeting is going to be, it's been postponed a week because I'll be in Chicago.
Okay.
So we're going to be meeting the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. We're not meeting as a commission in December, so we'll be giving a follow-up report in January.
So we can look forward to that then on that report out, which would then gives us the time frame that we're looking for as a report out that then the department can do some work with the school district around that. We don't have to come up with their budget. That's their job to do that, but we can come up with the recommendations. But the other piece is, and going back to I heard you kind of going there a moment ago, just because once the subcommittee sunsets, we can still have commissioners that serve as, if you will, informal liaisons that can engage with school districts, that can engage with businesses, that can engage with whatever part of the community and can report out on that and your activities as well. So just because we sunset the subcommittee, the ad hoc subcommittee, does not mean that we have to just shut off communication between any individual commissioner and that organization. Romick?
Chair Crumbs, I really appreciate you saying that. Yes, to answer your question, it seemed like the conversation was two parts. So A, trying to figure out exactly what information we can derive from this and what we can report back to the commission, and B, acting as a liaison, having that ongoing conversation, having that connection with Dr. Paramo, so to see how those systems, if there's any other ideas later on that we need to discuss or things that pop up that they can have a connection to, we'll be the liaisons for. So it seemed like it was two parts.
So I think that these are all really worthwhile reasons to continue to meet with the school. My concern is not agendizing those subcommittee meetings, because the more vague the purpose of the ad hoc subcommittee is, the more it doesn't look like an ad hoc subcommittee.
Right.
It looks like a standing subcommittee. And I wanted to address a point that Commissioner McKenna had raised, because I know this is really confusing. The proposition was that we could have an ad hoc subcommittee that would meet for that school calendar year, and then those subcommittee members would not get reappointed, if you will, and then the next calendar year, there would be a new subcommittee with new commissioners who would serve on that subcommittee. But it is a subcommittee that's purpose is to meet with the school in an ongoing manner. Just because the members change, it does not mean that it's a new ad hoc subcommittee. That is a standing subcommittee. It doesn't mean you can't have these meetings, but what it does mean is that it is subject to the Brown Act. It means it needs to be agendized, it needs to be posted, and everything that we do here for our meetings here, you would have to do for those subcommittee meetings. It is not unattainable, it's not doable, right? It is doable, but it is work. And it is work that you are going to have to do, because I'm just going to put it out there. Staff is not going to have the ability to do that for the standing subcommittees, and so that would be upon the commissioners to make sure that that is done, and that is done according to the Brown Act.
Mike?
Question on what you're talking about. It seems as if you have two government entities meeting with each other, and there's no minutes kept, and it seems like the public will be in the dark.
That's why.
Exactly it,
Yeah,
Commissioner
that's
Elman.
exactly it.
put the nail on the head. As interested as you are in this topic, you can imagine that there may be many members of the public who are just as interested in this topic, right? In school safety and in school resource officers, and they might have a lot to say, and they may want to say it to the subcommittee as you're meeting with the school, the people who are actually going to be, potentially making decisions or help influence those decisions. And that is exactly why it would and should be agendized as standing subcommittees if it came to that point where, again, we can't identify the purpose of this ad hoc subcommittee.
Right.
I mean, I'm calling it an ad hoc subcommittee because I know at one point we discussed what its purpose is supposed to be, and at that time, we determined that it was appropriately an ad hoc subcommittee. It feels like it's morphing, though, and not through anything that I think our membership did. I think some of it was because the schools, the school superintendent, I believe, who you met with, said, hey, what a great idea. I love meeting with you guys. I think you bring a lot to the table. I want to keep meeting with you. And so some of it, the morphing happened from the school side. But we have to recognize that it looks like it may have changed or may be changing. And do we want to actually formally change it so that we can continue meeting with the school
So,
regularly?
A question for the ad hoc subcommittee members, for the school safety subcommittee members. Are you going beyond traffic safety at the schools and the school resource officers?
No, those are the two primaries.
So those still stay focused, that's still the focus then. And so once that's, we've addressed one, once the second piece is resolved, we can then sunset that ad hoc subcommittee. And if there's a decision in April or May to reconstitute another subcommittee to specifically focus on tasks and set specific goals again, we can do that. But I'm hearing what you're saying, Gina, about this shouldn't be ongoing and continuing, because that's where it creates problems. Mike?
My question is, let's say an incident happens on campus. And it's not about traffic, and it's not about school resource officers. What happens then? How does that get brought up?
To clarify a little bit more, what gets brought up?
About an incident which does not fall into the two categories we've been talking about for this ad hoc committee.
So you're talking about any incident that could come up, and for
Right.
practical purposes,
And, so we have a subcommittee meeting with the school district. It can come up.
right. So, yeah.
So I'm just wondering what the wherefores are.
Well, go ahead, Paul.
I understand what you're saying, but I don't see how that could happen because they're two incredibly broad subjects. Everything basically on the perimeter of the school is traffic, and anything taking place where they want to call the police inside the school is basically RSO, or SRO. I keep getting that wrong. But, so I understand what you're saying, and, but I think that there's enough on our plate, it's not going to go too far off topic.
But you can't tell what's going to happen. You're not clairvoyant.
Well, we can't.
So I think we actually,
We're
I'm
going
starting
beyond.
to get really nervous right now.
Yeah.
Because we've gotten now we're trying to wrap it up into
Yep.
our subcommittee, right? And the report out that you're doing, but we're creeping along. I think I understand your question, Commissioner Elman, so I'm just going to make a brief response to that, and then I'm not even sure if we finished the reporting out by the ad hoc subcommittee at this point. We have? Okay. So I'm going to briefly answer Commissioner Elman's question, and then we should move on, okay?
Great.
What I understand your question to be, Commissioner Elman, is what if you're meeting in your ad hoc subcommittee with the school and the day before you had some, big incident happen at school? Right.
That's not part of the
Something
subcommittee.
happens, right? Something happens at the school, and so the school, in the course of conversation, whatever incident happened comes up in your subcommittee. What I would say to that is, one, it is outside the subject matter, right, of your subcommittee. Having said that, if you were to have just a casual conversation or a conversation and it's not part of your subcommittee, right, all parties recognize you're not talking about anything in any official capacity as a police commissioner, as part of this ad hoc subcommittee, you can talk about whatever you want to with the whoever you're speaking with. You just need to make sure that you understand you're not speaking to them in any official capacity as a police commissioner as part of this subcommittee.
When we had met, there had just been a current event that involved the school, something happened after hours, and that was discussed, but it was discussed like a current event. It wasn't in our, they don't ask us for recommendations or anything, it was just, a point of conversation. But it was not on topic, I agree with the city attorney.
And I think Gina's trying to have the last word to wrap this piece up if we could. So.
I've done that 3 times.
Yes, you have.
I've tried.
Yes, you have. All right. So with that, just for clarification as we move on, so there is one more element that the subcommittee is working on. Once that's completed, you'll be able to report back, and then we go from there. Thank you. Appreciate that, everyone. So the third item of business tonight is an update discussion and recommendations, if any, on the efforts of the LA County Task Force towards smash and grab thefts. And I believe we have Lieutenant Lasacco presenting tonight. Good evening.
Commissioner Coombs, police commissioners, can I have the PowerPoint, please? I'm here to talk about the involvement of the Burbank Police Department in the Organized Retail Crime Task Force, which was just relatively recently constituted. So we'll talk about why the task force itself was put together, what it is, the benefits of being part of that task force, what the task force has been doing over the last few months, and then some strategies for the task force moving forward. So why was the task force formed? Essentially to stop or suppress 2 things. One is the flash mob style thefts during business hours, which is the stuff you've been seeing pretty frequently on the news over the last few months, where a group of individuals will get together. They will essentially go into a retail establishment during business hours and, by all accounts, just take over the store, grab everything they can, usually going towards the higher end merchandise, and just overwhelming security, store staff, and running out of the premise with literally tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in merchandise. Secondarily, the closed business burglary. So we'll have businesses around the community where they house hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars in merchandise. Overnight, a group of individuals will break in, they go inside, steal the high-end merchandise, and they flee, usually in significantly larger groups of people. And I'll tell you about one we had in Burbank. So in 2019, almost $70 million, billion, that's with a B, in product was stolen from U.S. retailers, and $15 billion in lost tax revenue in state and federal together. Target alone lost $1 billion last year, and then in the greater Los Angeles area, they lost $140 million. And as I said earlier, the significant media coverage always brings to light and brings attention to the situation, which is what happened with this organized retail crime. This has been going on for quite a while. Quite frankly, we've recognized it for months, if not years, but the media coverage really brought it to the forefront in the public's attention. So we formed, or I should say, the City of Los Angeles, LAPD, formed the task force, and they asked us to take part in the task force and put a detective onto the task force, which we did do in August. We have a significant role in the task force with that member. No end date as of today. We're looking at March sometime to have a discussion, March of 2024, on kind of getting together and deciding how it's looking. Are we going to look towards an end date, or are we going to keep the task force going? At this point, it really looks like it's going to continue. So the task force is, right now, has 30 investigators with the agencies you see there on the board, including the LA County DA's office and, very importantly, the California State Attorney General's office. There's 2 bases, one at LAPD Van Nuys and one at downtown LAPD headquarters. Our investigator is housed at the LAPD Van Nuys station. In addition, the LA County Sheriff's Department and the California Ohio Patrol have their own task forces that they've had for some time that we are blending together. They are not housed with our task force, but we are joining forces and we will be doing operations with those two task forces. Both are really good at what they do. So the benefits, force multiplier and direct communication. Anytime you can have direct communication with somebody, and that's been talked about in both of the presentations before me, right? If I have a direct cell phone number for Commissioner Coombs and we have a common issue and I can call him on his cell phone or send him a text message and get something I need, that is the best case scenario. Because if I call the Los Angeles Police Department to try to get something and I'm just randomly calling some numbers, it's a very difficult thing to do oftentimes. But if I have that direct connection with somebody, I call Gina in the city attorney's office, that's the best thing I could do. She'll get it right, whatever I need right away. So that's very beneficial. Sharing assets, knowledge, and intelligence. So if I have some information and I hold it to myself, or our Burbank PD holds it, or Santa Monica PD holds it, or Glendale PD holds it, that doesn't do any benefit to the other agencies that are seeing the same problem, if not with the same suspects. So it's very important that we share that information, and the task force is a conduit. It absolutely has us doing that on a daily basis. I talked about the DA's office and the AG's office being on board. It is a very significant benefit to have your prosecutors on board with you from beginning to end, because they are giving approval and shaking their head yes when the police officers and the detectives are doing things. So when we get to the next step in the process, which is the filing and the prosecution after the arrest, there's really not too many hoops to jump through. They've already kind of said, yeah, we're going to go down that prosecutorial role on these 2, 4, 6, 8, 20 individuals, and these are the charges we're looking at. And we can kind of formulate our game plan with the prosecutor on board. So it's very, very beneficial to have the prosecutors embedded in the task force. One of the things having these prosecutors with us, and it's working, is we are charging these crimes that I described to you as flash mobs, where these folks are going in and they're essentially taking over the store. We're getting those, or trying to get those cases charged as robberies. So to have a robbery, like I've talked about here before, you have to have force or fear, or both. So if you just have somebody that walks in and takes a Gucci purse off the rack and walks out, and there's no force or fear, that's a grand theft, assuming it's over $950, which I think they probably all are. Where you have the robbery and it's charged as a higher crime with higher sentencing is if you have that force or fear. And the prosecutors have been willing to say and go along with the belief that, or the strategy that going in and taking over a store is using force and fear. The employees are afraid to confront the suspects for fear that they're going to be injured. So that actually helps significantly. I talked about the crossover. So these suspects, these criminals, do not see jurisdictional boundaries. They're committing crimes in Beverly Hills, they're committing crimes in Ventura, they're committing crimes in Glendale, all over, and in fact all over the state, all over the county. So when we're sharing information, and we have now seen that we have common suspects in our crimes. Our crooks are committing crimes in LA, are committing crimes in Glendale. Less duplication of work. If my investigator on the task force writes a search warrant and he has the information for the investigator at LAPD's crime, we can write one search warrant, for instance, instead of 2 search warrants, and put those two crimes together, and there's 50% of the work is being done by one person, or 100% of the work is done by one person instead of 2. So to date, starting in August, 60 arrests made. Over 50 search warrants have been served. That includes not only premise search warrants, but search warrants on cell phones, other devices, vehicles, anything you can think of. 41 counts of robbery have been filed, 42 counts of grand theft. Over $1 million in stolen merchandise has been recovered. As investigators, we talk a lot about what our priorities are, and one of those priorities is to recover stolen merchandise. So when these folks are victimized and they lose hundreds of thousands of dollars of property, it is a hit to their business. And if we can get some of that back, it's an extremely important aspect of our job. 9 handguns seized. There's actually more handguns. 9 is just our task force. The sheriffs and the LAP or CHP task forces have seized their own guns as well. So far, we've had one major case, you may be aware of it, on Magnolia Park, at a store called Magnolia Park, where some individuals drove a truck into the front of the store in the middle of the night. The truck was stolen. Upwards of 15 people ran into the store, stole a lot of loot, left the store, and got away. We've identified several individuals on that case. We've arrested a couple. A couple charges have been filed by the DA's office, and we're looking at several more suspects in that case that we've identified that we are going to work towards holding accountable for breaking into that store in that manner. Doing, I think it was like $30,000 damage just to the store in a vandalism, essentially, by running into the store. And I will tell you that the identification and the arrest is really only a small part of the entire case. The investigation is only starting. We have to get the case filed with either the DA or the AG. Then we have to go to court, and we have to be prepared to prosecute it in front of a jury. If the case is overwhelmingly good, which is always our goal, right? We want to overwhelm the defense where they take a plea deal so we don't actually have to go in front of a jury. But no prosecutor is going to take a case unless they know they can win that case in front of a jury. So we are working really hard, and we haven't gotten to that step yet where we're actually getting plea deals or jury trials, but we are planning to go there, and we're definitely prepared to go there on this case with a lot more suspects. There's 4 additional organized retail crime cases that our detective is holding that happened in Burbank that he believes has some crossover into cases from these other jurisdictions, so he's working really hard to show that, and this number will increase as we put the cases together. So who's committing these crimes? Small crews, obviously, just a group of people. You know, the 5 folks will get together and they'll go commit a crime. Certainly that's happening. What you're seeing on TV, and at least what the media is portraying, is these flash mobs, and those ones, they are happening, definitely. They're social media driven. These folks will communicate via social media. They'll say, hey, let's meet at 1 o'clock at name the store. They go in, 20, 30 people, maybe more, and they overwhelm the store and they leave. We've seen some copycat opportunists, so folks that, and this happens with all types of crime that makes it on the media, folks see the crime on TV and then they go duplicate that crime and try to establish something for their benefit. But the real important piece is the gang members. So what we're seeing is that a lot of gang members are at the top of these organizations. They're sending out these folks that could be the small crews or the flash mobs. They're orchestrating the event, coming from all over the state, sometimes out of state, and committing these crimes and then reaping the benefits of the work of all these other individuals, if you will, that are committing these crimes. So we're seeing a lot of gang members that are being arrested related to, a lot of the arrests in those numbers are gang members. Strategies moving forward. We need to work with the store management and employees to gain cooperation. It's really important that that they understand what they need to do to harden their own target, and then once they are victimized, what they need to do to help the police catch those people. So training the store employees, surveillance cameras. It's unbelievable to me this day and age how cheap that product is, and so many places do not have working surveillance cameras, or if they do, they're pointing in the wrong direction, or the quality is not good. These stores are like we talked about, the amount of money we're talking about, the value of these cameras is cheap in comparison. So we need to educate these stores that they need to get surveillance cameras, because that helps us a lot. Sharing repeat offender information. These LPOs, the good ones, we will go to talk to them and they will immediately tell us, oh yeah, stores in Glendale, Pasadena, El Monte, Ventura, and South LA have been victimized by the same suspects. And they know that way before we do, so we need to make sure that they know that that helps us. So again, continuing to collaborate, share information, communicate, identify and arrest chronic offenders, and then just keeping the public informed, which is what we're doing here. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Let's open it up. Roma, you want to start?
Lieutenant Salco, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for that presentation. I know I was the one that agendized this item. Just making a connection to what Mr. Donahue said during his public comment for the zero bail policy, is that affecting, as far as apprehending, are you guys seeing recurring offenders when, in regards to theft at all, like?
Across the board. So across the board. Whether it's this or any other crime we're talking about, if we arrest somebody for grand theft, that person is either cited out in the field or brought to the jail now and essentially cited out within, a short amount of time. They are not staying in jail to arraignment, which would generally be a couple days after they were arrested or until they posted bond, because there's no bond to post. If it's a robbery charge, they are given a review, judicial review by a judge at this point, and it depends on a lot of factors if they stay in custody or not. But if we're just charging folks with essentially the grand theft type stuff, we had someone that got arrested in a stolen car the other day. That person was given a ticket out in the field. So to answer your question, I think what you're asking me is, it is absolutely problematic for the police department and the community in dealing with the zero bail policy that's in effect in LA County right now.
I really appreciate that. And just to share, I didn't get a chance to really elaborate on my ride along with Sergeant Morokian, but when we apprehended, when he apprehended the theft incident at the Empire Center, there was actually a 14-year-old boy that was involved in that, and they stole over $1,000 worth of like merchandise from Marshall. So it was really crazy to see that. So yeah, well, I appreciate that. Thank you for the answer.
Yes, sir.
Paul, go ahead.
My wife and I, right as COVID was starting, happened to be in the Rite Aid across from Porto's when a vehicle came in, 5 people with hoods and masks on, ran in. It was COVID, so masks weren't that strange until they started filling up their backpacks. I unfortunately had a propane tank in my hand because I was there to get it filled, which they thought was a weapon and tried to confront me. And the manager, the restraint was amazing. He's like, no, this happens a couple times a week. We just go out and take a picture of the license plate and we let them do it. And at the time, it was because they stole under $1,000 each, I guess. But now they can go higher than that and they still just get a ticket.
Well, even over $1,000, so it's $950 becomes a felony, but that is essentially an immediate release from custody if it's just for a theft. If there's no force or fear involved, if there's no robbery, it's just a theft. I say just a theft, but if it's only a theft, that's essentially an immediate release from custody.
It was comforting and disappointing to see how well the staff handled it, like it was everyday business, as well as everybody else in the store just step out of the way and let them do the thing and nobody gets hurt. That's a terrible statement on society, but that's where we are. Thank you for your efforts.
Yes, sir.
So I appreciate it. We'll just keep working our way around. Just wanted to, you actually did a fantastic job answering. I was writing down questions and then you were answering them later on, so I appreciate that. So just to clarify, the task force began in August?
Correct.
Is that correct? And then since that time, you had identified and you had talked about that these are really rings or usual suspects as opposed to random groups of people that are doing this. So there's some level of organization going on behind this. I just appreciated that because, again, there's so much going on right now about, as we were just talking about the no bail and the citation and go or the ticket and go. I just want to be really clear. The work that the task force is doing is really focusing on some level of I don't want to say it's organized crime, but some level of crime that is organized with the flash mobs and everything. We're not talking about somebody that's like needing diapers for their kid or something like that. We're talking about something on a much grander scale that's actually planned out in advance, and it sounds like, and coordinated with a large group.
Absolutely. Not to be flippant, but Organized Retail Crime Task Force. It's exactly what you're saying. These folks are organized. They don't just, think they're walking down the street and see a crime of opportunity.
Right.
They are traveling to this location with the intent to take over a store, either while it's open or closed, in either regard, and stealing thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars in merchandise at any given time.
Right. So we're not talking about people that are committing crimes just to get their basic needs met. This is kind of going above and beyond, is what it sounds like.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Do we want to keep going around the horn? Mike, do you have any? Go all the way down? Or go ahead, Anna.
So yes, absolutely essential. I watch a lot of TV. I watch the news every night. And one of the things that you said, fear. To me, the definition of fear, if people come into a store, they're loud, I'm going to be afraid. They're wearing any kind of a mask or a hood or anything, I'm going to be afraid. They start pushing, breaking, bashing glass, I'm afraid. So how much of this definition of fear is important to, apprehending, charging, et cetera?
Well, to charge the robbery, the element of fear or force has to be there. So this theory that we are bringing forward in using the robbery charge when there is no direct give me your wallet or actual force where someone is physically holding you and stealing something from you, this theory that we are moving forward with is relatively new, or it is new. So it hasn't been tested. There is no case law, what we call case law, on this theory. So we will see moving forward how well it's received by first a jury, and then most likely the appellate courts when they decide, are we applying, and I say we, the police, the prosecutors at all levels, are we applying the law appropriately? So we'll see how that goes. Is the answer to your question. And it does not, the robbery itself, it just says force or fear. It doesn't say there has to be a lot of fear or a little fear or a lot of force or a little force. There just has to be fear and force. So when these folks come in, to your point, with sledgehammers and they're breaking display cases, or they are overwhelming the employees and telling them, leave me alone, I will hurt you, those type of things, or acting as if they're going to hurt somebody, those things are all force and fear in my estimation and in the estimation of the prosecutors that we have talked to. Now, that's only a small part. We have a long way to go before we get to the part where it's passed through all the judicial tests. Just like all things that are new in law, it takes a long time for those wheels to spin.
Great, thank you so much.
Mike, go ahead.
I'm not an attorney. I watch TV shows. You've described this as they're planned out and they're organized. Isn't that a conspiracy?
Sure, absolutely a conspiracy. But, well, yes, to answer your question, it's a conspiracy.
And doesn't that add on to charges if you're working within the definition of conspiracy?
So the use of conspiracy in criminal law, and Ms. O can help me out here, is generally used when we actually don't have a completed crime. So if you and I conspire to commit a crime, but we don't actually go commit the crime, then the prosecuting authority would consider charging a conspiracy. Very difficult to prove, by the way. But if they actually go out and complete the crime, there is no reason and no benefit to charge the conspiracy, because it's significantly harder to prove a conspiracy than it is to prove that you actually did the crime. So we save the conspiracy charges for those cases where somebody or somebodies were planning to commit a felony crime, most likely, but they actually didn't get to the point where they completed it.
So if somebody sent out on social media, we're going to be at such and such, and we're going to go in and grab stuff, and your department finds out prior to it happening, it doesn't occur, they can be charged with a conspiracy.
We would go down that road. Whether they be charged or not, that's beyond my pay grade, but we certainly would consider going down that road.
Thank you very much for explaining the law to me.
Yes, sir.
Big Mike, did you have any questions?
Yes. You said organized retail crime. Does that involve RICO at all?
So RICO's a federal type offense, and that's going well beyond anything I've really been involved in, unless it was gang-related. The RICO stuff I've been involved in was gang-related stuff, and it was pretty serious. But, from my knowledge of the RICO, potentially, I can't say with any definitive yes or no. I don't know if Ms. O knows that or not.
If that's on a federal level, is there a state
Equivalent?
vehicle that would cover the same?
Well,
So it's been 20 years since I practiced criminal law, but I actually have somebody here that I was going to introduce you to on our next agenda item, and he has many, many years as a criminal prosecutor. So I'm going to put him on the spot. He looks a little bit like, really? I wanted to introduce you to Ray Johal of our office. And I was going to have him also kind of introduce himself and tell you a little bit about himself, but that was for the next agenda item. Maybe we can still do that later, but
We'll hold it for later, but it'd be great to meet
Yes.
you right now.
So, Chair Coombs and Commissioners, my name's Ray Joel. I'm a senior assistant city attorney with the Burbank City Attorney's Office. I've been an attorney for almost 10 years now, 2.5 with the City Attorney's Office as a supervising prosecutor. As a supervising prosecutor for the last 2.5 years here. Before that, I was a DA with San Bernardino County for almost 7.5 years. And I'll be transitioning over to advisory with the Burbank Police Department, and we'll be attending these meetings pretty regularly. But in terms of answering your question, there is no state equivalent. Conspiracy is probably the closest. And as Lieutenant Lasacco mentioned, it is going to be that's a difficult charge to prove. So I am very excited about the organized retail crime theory that's being proposed and potential for stopping some of these crimes. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome. All right, if any other, Mike, go ahead.
In the group thievery, is the end product for the individual or more for an organization? Somebody sees something on the internet, does that just randomly come in and they're stealing for themselves? Or are they stealing that to a central place or a central organization?
It's both. It's both. So you'll have folks that'll go in and steal for themselves or their small group. You'll also have the individuals that are going and steal for the gang, for instance. Like I talked about earlier, there is significant gang involvement in these crimes, and they will go in and steal for the benefit of the gang. Unfortunately, in LA County, we are not charging gang crimes right now, so we can't even go down we can't go down that road at this time in charging the gang crimes, so we are just charging the crimes that they're committing. Several years ago, and going back 25 years, we would charge, the DAs would charge gang enhancements, which could make a crime that normally would put you in prison for 2 years would put you in prison for 10. A crime that would put you in prison for 10 would put you in for 20 to 25 because it was in furtherance of the gang. So working in that realm is really difficult right now because the prosecutors in LA County are not able to charge the gang enhancements.
And just for clarification, the Burbank Police Department is not involved in actually charging people. They're involved in apprehending people and investigations. I just want to tease that out a little bit because it's not the Burbank Police Department that's doing any of the charging.
That's correct. The charging is done by the DA's office or the city attorney's office in cases of misdemeanor. And now with the task force, like we talked about earlier, the attorney general's office.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So with that, Romick, anything else? Okay, with that, if there's no other comments on this, I want to thank you, and I want to make sure that our commissioners are not apprehending or attacking people with propane tanks. And so we will not do that. But thank you.
One of the most informative meetings we've ever had.
All right, so we are moving on. Thank you. We are moving on to general announcements by the police chief. Brief announcements regarding upcoming events and/or items of note related to the police department.
And I will be brief. Good evening, Commissioners. So just a point of clarification, Commissioner Chapman, the wreath ceremonies that are done, it's really the BPOA that coordinates that. So everybody in the department is involved. They reach out to the families. They underwrite the wreaths. That is a tradition they have been doing as long as I can remember.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Kudos to them. Just to share with you, last night at City Council, Officer Robert Martinez was recognized as Officer of the Year. So we had that ceremony. And then Officer Kiles, who presented earlier from our Met team, received the Rex Andrews Award. Just to expand on her educational journey, she got accepted to a PhD program at Concordia Irvine. So we're very proud of her. And so we have 2 of our employees that are in a doctoral program. So we move forward with education. Saturday, the 28th, we're going to do the drug take-back event at the police department. It's going to be in the station. You referenced the pink cruiser. Want to acknowledge Rapix, that is a business here in the city of Burbank that does the design, underwrites, and supports, collaborates that effort. The last viewing, if you will, before the Rapix comes off or the wrap comes off will be Wednesday, November 1st at Tequila's Mexican Grill. There will be a cancer fundraiser and awareness program there. All are invited. Kind of on a somber note, Wednesday, November 15th, between 2:30 and 3 at Johnny Carson Park, near the Defenders of the Constitution Monument, there'll be an unveiling of a flagpole in honor of Matthew Pavelka. This will be the 20th anniversary of his death. It is invitation to commissioners. I believe you all got invite city council, but we're also opening it up to the public. So the Burbank Police Foundation is the ones that have underwritten that tribute to Officer Matthew Pavelka. Let's see here. Just a reminder, mid-November, because we're getting close to the holidays, the BPOA and the United States Marine Corps will participate in Toys for Tots. If you can note, December 9th will be our second iteration of the gun buyback. That'll be from 1000 to 1400, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And that'll be in the back of the police station. It was enormously successful last year. And then finally, we do the Shop with a Cop. And that's another collaboration with a variety of entities, the BPOA, Walmart, Burbank Housing, the Burbank Police Foundation, and Kiwanis, that we all get together and have our DNA on Shop with a Cop, and that is also a success that we look forward to. So having said that, is there any questions about the calendar?
Do we have a date for Shop with a Cop yet?
Yeah, the working date is Wednesday, December 13th. That's a working date. So, as you recall, Walmart has been very generous as far as supporting it the last couple of years. So we're kind of working around their schedule, and the Kiwanis, the BPOA, the foundation, and Burbank Housing too? Yeah, so, and there's a lot of folks that support that effort. Very organized, very celebratory, so look forward to that. So for folks that are at home, we're already talking about Christmas, so probably got some eye rolls there. So, do you have anything for me? Any questions? Michael?
Mike, go ahead.
The gun buyback, is it going to be the same way as it was the previous year?
It's going to be better because our first go, I think we overstaffed, and we will be, I believe we'll be very efficient, but it'll be the same type of format. We overstaffed last year because we didn't know, but I think we'll be just fine. So it's not only the onboarding or intake of the weapon, then it has to be processed and then ultimately disposed. So I think the staff is going to be ready for that event.
So it will be gift cards given to people turning in guns?
Yeah, I missed that one. Yes, gift cards, I think it's $100 for handgun, $200 for rifle. Does that sound right? 1 and 2? Yeah.
Thank you.
Got it?
Any other questions for the chief? All right, thank you. Really
And I
appreciate
thought
this.
Frommer did a really good job. I wished he would have gone a little longer, but I thought he did a really good job. And but the Met team and Marcos also did a really good job.
So no sidecars in the budget for the motors
No,
right
I
now.
don't
Okay.
think so. And Lasaka did a fine job too.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. So we're moving into introduction of agenda items for future meetings, and so there are a couple of items that are, I want to lift up. I'm looking at the calendar that we've established, and as a reminder, we set the calendar, but we actually have to agendize the items for the next meeting. So for the November meeting, we have domestic violence and gang activity identified on the calendar, but we just need to actually formally agendize that. So
Make a motion.
So Paul motions to agendize domestic violence and gang activity for the November agenda. Do we have a second? Romick seconds, and all in favor?
Can I make a point here?
Sure.
Two separate items, very, very broad, don't know what you want. So please be much more specific about what it is that you exactly want for these two topics, please.
Thank you. So let's go ahead and back it up. Since Paul had done the motion to agendize, do you want to expand on the domestic violence and/or the gang activity piece? And we will.
Paul was going to miss that meeting because he'll be in Chicago, so I'm going to.
Oh, so Paul's vote. So Paul's rescinding his motion to agendize. He doesn't get a vote right now. Mike, you want to take this on?
I was just going to say that with the discussion we had about retail theft, which was involved with gang activity, maybe we can wait to do gang activity again.
Okay. Would you like to make the motion about domestic violence?
Yeah, I would think that at our next meeting, let's agendize domestic violence.
And if we can get a little bit specific on what is it that you'd be interested in exploring?
I would like to see kind of like domestic violence really peaked during COVID. I would like to see where we're trending right now. And basically how it fits in with other discussions that we've had about mental health and substance abuse.
Okay. So the motion is to discuss domestic violence, looking at issues related to mental health, substance abuse, and coming out of the pandemic.
Correct.
Great. Do we have a second? I'll second that myself. So all in favor? Any opposition? Okay. Sure you got that one okay? Okay. So what I heard, and I'll just put it out there, is the suggestion was to leave gang activity off the table right now, and we can keep it on the calendar, but we don't necessarily have to agendize it. Gina, did you have something that you wanted to?
No, it was actually, see, Ms. Nakamura's been at these meetings as long as I have longer, so she actually knew to ask the question to be more specific about domestic violence because it is really so broad. And even with the clarification, there is still a lot of room for the police department to present it in a way that they're able to. And I'm assuming that the commission is okay with that.
Yeah. And this is an opportunity that, in light of, this has been an annual issue that we've been addressing, and there have been some significant and ongoing issues related to domestic violence. So I'm confident that the department will be addressing that in their presentation. Okay. All right. Romick, go ahead.
Oh, new item?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, great. Want to request a report regarding recent mailbox theft incidents. Some community members reached out in regards to that type of. It'd be great to get a report on like the type of property that was stolen, types of suspects. Is this something that's an issue in the community?
So, to focus it, you're asking for a presentation from the department on mailbox thefts,
incidents,
trends,
property
patterns,
exactly,
and
investigative action,
and law enforcement response to these trends. Does that sound okay? Okay, so there's a motion there. A second?
I'll second.
Paul seconds. The guy that's not going to be here at the next meeting seconds it. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? No opposition? And all are in favor. There's no abstentions either.
Just for clarification, I'll be on the phone.
You will be on the phone, but you won't be a participatory member in the
sir,
meeting.
Just as a point too, RIPA, the recommendations has already been agendized for November. So now you have 3 items.
Oh, okay. So we've got 3 items there. So we've got domestic violence, RIPA, and mailbox theft, which is a pretty full agenda. Go ahead, Mike.
I move we close November.
Close for additional items. Okay. So that We'll hold it at that. We don't have to vote on that as long as nobody recommends anything else. I do have a, I would like to, it's tricky because I realize that this would be an agenda item for a future meeting, but I don't want, actually, no, I take it back. I do want to agendize something for next month's meeting. I would like to put, let me get my notes real quick. I wrote this down. So I'd like, and I failed to do this earlier when we were reporting out. I did not report out on some of the activities I was involved in. Specifically, I just wanted to note that 3 of us had attended a normalizing racial equity in local government training. There was a requirement of all board and commission chairs for the city. That said, with that, and then about a year ago, we had a training that was on mission, vision, and goals of commissions and boards in the city. So I'd like to go ahead and make a motion for an agenda item for next month. That 2 things. I want a motion to have an ad hoc committee that consists of myself, the vice chair, and the secretary to put together a recommendation on a mission statement specifically for the commission, which addresses our, let's see, I wrote this down, that addresses the mission of the police commission. And we would be reporting out on that at the next meeting. So I'm motioning both an ad hoc committee, subcommittee, and, no? I'm motioning to create.
To create a subcommittee, it needs to be agendized, and it's not agendized to create a subcommittee.
Okay.
So what we could do is agendize it for next month to create the subcommittee, and then
Gotcha.
whatever work you're going to do with that ad hoc subcommittee. But you can't create it tonight because
Right.
we haven't agendized it.
Okay, so there's no way to do the work prior to agendizing
Well, you can do
it.
the work by yourself.
But we can't do that in a group of 3 or less.
No, that's the subcommittee.
Okay.
Right.
So I'm going to motion to add to the agenda for the November meeting, the creation of a subcommittee to focus on a mission of the police commission following the normalizing racial equity in local government training, as well as the mission, vision, and values training that we took a year ago.
There's already a mission statement for the police commission.
So it's not up for discussion right now. So I've motioned it. So I'm looking for a second.
I'm just saying.
I hear you. We'll get through it. I hear you. So we're looking for a second?
Second.
Okay, so all in favor? Show of hands, raise aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? No opposition? Okay. Yeah. All right. Mike, go ahead.
For far future to agendize a presentation and discussion on the zero bail situation. It's too early now because I think there's no data, but I would like to see it maybe 6-7 months from now, just to get it on.
So I like that, and we're going to work around what I think Gina's thinking right now. So we're going to agenda. The motion is to agendize a presentation on zero bail and the effect on Burbank Police Department activities as far as law enforcement is concerned, and
Its effect on the city of Burbank.
its effect on City of Burbank. But there's no specific date for that agenda item, so it's a placeholder that will carry over until we add it to a date.
We have to wait for data to be collected.
Gotcha. Do I have a second for that? I'll second it. I'm good with that. So all in favor? Show of hands. Any opposition? No opposition, so it's unanimous as well. Okay, with that, are there any other agenda items?
Yes, and I was actually looking for phrasing. I apologize if I'm on my phone. In light of the fact that the governor has just, I believe, signed a bill, that's something we discussed before, sidewalk use, and what's appropriate and what's not. The chief, at one point in time, I think it was Sergeant Turner, looked up and told us that the only thing that has to yield on the sidewalk in Burbank is a skateboard.
So, Paul, I'm going to ask you to focus it. You're suggesting an agenda item for a future meeting.
We ask the city council to change the code simply to state pedestrians have the right of way.
So you're agendizing that the city council change the code, or you're agendizing a discussion to consider recommending to the city council a change of the code?
Yes.
Gina, did that?
I apologize. I was briefly distracted by my boss asking if Commissioner McKenna had attacked somebody with a propane tank.
He did not. For the record,
No, he did
Commissioner
not.
McKenna did not attack anybody with a propane tank.
I guess he was leaving the office and overheard just that part of the conversation. So I apologize. Can you repeat what the code section that you want to change, or I apologize, I didn't hear it.
At one point, we were talking about public usage of the sidewalks, and I was thinking in a non-prohibitive way. Just right now, the pedestrians have the right of way. It means if the bicycles are on there or if skateboards are on there, whatever, they just have to yield. It's not. I'm not necessarily making them against the law, but just noting that pedestrians have the right of way.
So again, you're making the motion to have an agenda item to discuss the current code related to use of bicycles
Sidewalks.
use of sidewalks.
Period.
Okay, so a motion to address the current code related to use of sidewalks. Help us with the nexus
Can
to.
I make a point here?
Sure.
I think that you, at some point, I don't remember which, we're going to create an e-bike subcommittee to make a recommendation to the city council and looking further into the codes and stuff. So
Right.
I think this is, I think, I can't find where it is, but I believe that there's already subcommittee, or an ad hoc.
I think we established that ad hoc
I think you
subcommittee,
did,
and I
then they
know
were
that
gonna
Commissioner
report
McKenna
out
was
maybe
on
in
that.
January, I think. I'm trying to find it.
I was thinking, I was thinking much simpler.
So is
much simpler, just simply to give pedestrians right of way on a sidewalk.
So pedestrians essentially already have the right of way. I mean, right, you're not supposed to run over pedestrians if you're on a bicycle or a,
Right, but
or a
according to the
skateboard.
current city code, the way it was read to us a couple months back, the only thing that has to yield to a pedestrian is a skateboard.
Okay, everybody left that are the subject matter experts.
Okay,
Bring it
and,
back.
and I want to make sure that we're not talking too much at length about
Right,
it, right?
Yeah.
right.
I didn't really think it was gonna be this.
So what I'm going to recommend is that we hold on to that for right now. We do have a subcommittee, an ad hoc subcommittee to focus on e-bikes and all that stuff from a few months ago. Let's see if we can work through that subcommittee to clarify the agenda item for a future meeting. Would that be okay, Paul? Since you're not going to be here next month.
Yeah, sure, I was thinking January, because, I apologize, I'm looking at my phone, but there was a recent bill was just passed.
So see,
About
the problem is we're getting into
supporting this.
we're getting
So,
into
yeah, so I
discussion
want-
of it, and we can't do that right now.
Okay, keep it simple. That's literally, I thought this was gonna be very simple.
Yeah, no, nothing simple. So let's hold on to that for right now, and then we'll continue. And also, I don't want to agendize that if you're not going to be here to discuss it.
No, I was hoping to agendize it in January, yes.
Okay, so we can
All right.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And don't forget, we're we're
Dark
historically
December.
dark in December, so I'm assuming we're going to be dark again in December.
Is that a decision that the commission needs to make, or is that made for us?
It's
It's just been past practice.
Okay.
Because of the holidays, and typically it's been commissioners who have conflicts in traveling, so we just go dark.
Okay, okay. Thank you for that. So with that, are there any other agenda items or any other proposed agenda items? Wonderful. So with that, our next meeting is going to be Thursday, November 5th. I'm sorry, not Thursday, Wednesday, November 15th, 2023. I was reading the script. Wednesday, November 15th, 2023, 6 p.m. Here, we will not have Commissioner McKenna with us, who will be representing us at the NACOL conference, and we appreciate you taking the time to do that. So with that, I adjourn this meeting. Thank you.